determined boy trained rigorously, his young limbs moving with focused precision. Each swing of his wooden sword echoed his resolve to grow stronger. Charging forward with a leaping attack, he miscalculated. The older swordsman calmly parried, sending the boy tumbling. Sprawled on the ground, he gasped for air, body aching from repeated falls. The instructor stood over him, offering firm advice. Despite exhaustion, the boy listened closely. Praise followed, surprising him. Spring breezes carried butterflies as he reflected on 7 years since his rebirth. From a modest village in the Liomel Empire, his journey began quietly within a world that knew him not. At first, he struggled to accept his strange new reality. Being reborn as an infant was disorienting. Daily life in a baby's body was slow, frustrating, and alien. Despite his grown mind, he hid the truth from his parents. They saw only a quiet child using his inherited knowledge. He activated a status screen. The name Len Ashton confirmed his identity in this world. Although the screen showed his skills, it lacked the familiar stats from the game. Attributes like strength and defense were not displayed, making growth harder to measure. The skilled demon sword summoning puzzled him. It hadn't existed in his original playthrough. Len activated his unique skill, summoning a glowing sword that shattered through the floor beneath him. Sitting on the floor, he examined the summoned weapon. Though its size was unimpressive, it represented the starting point of something far greater. According to the description, growth would come through repeated use. Each summoning and swing contributed to raising his proficiency. By reaching higher levels and meeting conditions, more sword types would become available. Planning ahead, he mapped out his upgrade path. However, the ability came with risk. Excessive use of magic power triggered intense headaches. Pushing too far could cause collapse. He knew progress required discipline and limits. Each morning, Len secretly summoned his demon sword to practice and build up his magic power. While it wasn't the most efficient method, it was the only path he had. He confirmed again that this world mirrored the game he once knew. However, the future ahead, once soaked in blood, was something he had to prevent at any cost. To protect his life, Len studied magic, history, and combat diligently. Knowledge became his second weapon. 7 years passed. With new strength and understanding, he was finally ready to begin training with real swords. Despite his father's inexperience as a teacher, Len stepped forward, eager to learn, face, and grow. Len prepared for training, quietly summoning the demon sword of wood. Without revealing the truth, he faced his father. Charging forward, he released a swift attack, fully engaging in combat. His form was sharp movement driven by purpose. Encouraged by praise, he pushed harder. His father urged him to continue until exhaustion took over. Though determined, his body couldn't keep up. The 7-year-old frame had limitations. Despite holding unusual strength, collapsing to the ground, Len struggled to breathe. He chose to rest alone, vowing to rise again once energy returned. Len smiled after checking his status screen. His effort using the demon sword of wood had increased his proficiency. That small gain encouraged him. Each morning began with studying, followed by sword training with his father. His routine became steady and consistent. He learned about demon stones crystals retrieved from monsters. While they could enhance his skills, not all were usable. The stone given by his father had no effect. It became clear that only self-earned stones would respond. Despite the game-like structure, this world demanded effort. No shortcuts existed. As the days passed, another month quietly slipped by. Len continued sparring against his father, carefully swinging the demon sword of wood while managing his stamina. Training took place outdoors, surrounded by grass and animals, creating a calm but demanding environment. Improvement became evident. His movement grew sharper, more precise. Praise followed, though gaps in his form remained. One misstep led to imbalance. Despite good effort, his opponent exploited the opening and sent him flying. Even while lying on the ground, Len refused to give up. He pushed to continue, but his body had limits. His father ended the session, cautioning him against injury. Encouraged, Len expressed gratitude and quietly caught his breath. Progress approached its peak. Len checked his stats and saw the summoning technique nearly ready to level up. A few more days of consistent training would be enough. Despite the slow pace, he kept going. 2 points gained per Dalton Y was frustrating but steady. Reflecting on it like a game helped ease the fatigue. Recently, things felt more engaging. The pace of life, while repetitive, began revealing new patterns and shifts. Later, his mother treated his blistered hands. Concerned by the damage, she gently questioned the intensity of his training. While applying ointment, she reminded him of their family's knightly heritage. His dedication, though tiring, was clearly appreciated. Len continued his grueling training, clashing swords with his father under the morning sun. Sweat clung to his face, but he refused to yield. Despite being knocked down, Len's resolve remained firm. He requested to continue, but his father insisted on rest. After training, Len checked his progress. His skill had nearly leveled up. Exhaustion weighed weighed heavy, but satisfaction lingered. Though progress came slowly, Len didn't mind. To him, it felt like leveling in a game. His mother tended his blisters. Though worried, she understood his passion for swordsmanship and admired his dedication. Lying quietly in bed, the boy stared at the ceiling, lost in deep thought. The stillness of the night outside contrasted the quiet unease in his heart as he pondered the word family. His thoughts drifted back to his previous life in the city. After his parents' divorce, he had stayed with his mother over the years. Their bond began to fade. Mealtime conversations grew shorter until they disappeared entirely. Even so, he held no resentment. He remained grateful she supported his university education. Now, in this new world, his life had taken a different turn. Lying in bed beneath the quiet night sky, the boy reflected on the meaning of family. His mind drifted to memories from a previous life. Nance, he had walked beside her in the city after his parents' early divorce. He had chosen to follow her, clinging to her hand. Solitude became routine, but she had still supported his education. That silent gesture left him grateful. Sword training under the open sky demanded more from his body than he had imagined. Days flowed with discipline and care. He helped with chores, studied diligently, and trained hard. Len gasped for breath, gripping his wooden sword tightly. Sweat trickled down his face, his body trembling from exhaustion. He steadied his breathing, glancing at his hands. The once heavy sword felt unexpectedly light. Muscles no longer ached as before. Momentum surged. The ground blurred beneath his feet as Len launched forward. Faster than he intended, his instructor barely reacted in time, which shattered as Len's strike tore through the air. Power overwhelming his control. Len froze, stunned by his own strength. His mentor stepped back, gripping his weapon defensively, disbelief evident in his eyes. He steadied himself, eyes sharp and determined. His mentor urged him to continue, demanding relentless effort. Their wooden swords clashed with a resounding crack. Len's strikes carried greater speed and force than moments ago. The man's eyes widened in disbelief. Len's progress defied logic, his strength expanding with every swing. Len leapt forward, shattering the man's defense. Splinters exploded from the broken weapon, scattering into the air. Recognition dawned in the man's eyes as he watched Len's relentless form, a memory surfaced connecting the boy's name to a greater destiny. Len was suddenly lifted off the ground, startled by his mentor's unexpected reaction. Laughter replaced silence as his mentor's expression turned joyous. He congratulated Len, celebrating his sudden awakening as something extraordinary. Without hesitation, the man lifted Len high above his head in sheer excitement. A faint glow appeared before Len's eyes, revealing lines of text no one else could see. The mysterious system confirmed his suspicion. His skill had evolved. Pride filled his mentor's voice as he imagined Len's future beyond their small village. The vision of knighthood castles and banners shimmered vividly in Len's thoughts. Len's parents celebrated his newfound ability with pride, their curiosity turning toward discovering its name. His calm attitude puzzled his parents. They couldn't understand his lack of excitement or fear. Time passed, and Len found contentment in the quiet rhythm of village life. Working alongside his father, he hunted monsters and helped provide for everyone. When danger finally struck, Len stood beside his father in battle. Fierce creatures surrounded them, snarling and lunging without mercy. Years slipped by peacefully after that day. Len's once uncertain heart found purpose in the bonds he cherished most. Len reflected on his past life and the present he now lived. The person he used to be was gone. His desires were simple, more than strength or status. Len longed for time together with his family. The warmth of a shared embrace grounded him. He held tightly to them, knowing this family was real. Living as Len, he saw this new life as a second playthrough. With memories of his past intact, he could make better choices. He promised himself to protect what mattered most. Their quiet home, their gentle smiles, he would keep it all safe. Len vowed to live differently than the character he once knew. His goal was a peaceful future in time. He would encounter someone he never should have met. The girl before him stood with strength and beauty, yet fate named her his enemy. Against destiny's design, Len chose to resist. Crowds gathered, unaware of the shifts unfolding behind the scenes. For now, he remained unaware of what lay ahead. Laughter, warmth, and quiet moments filled his days. Within the northern city of Closel, a quiet girl sat in a blooming garden lost in thought. A night approached, sensing unrest. She dismissed his concern, admitting only her boredom after training had ended. Nearby soldiers groaned in pain. They had failed to match her strength and sword practice. She remained composed. He explained his orders to patrol the Northwest Territory and slay a beast causing disturbances. She listened silently. Elsewhere, Len gazed at his wristband. 3 years had passed since he last leveled up in that world. Len Ashton, eldest son of the Ashton family, reviewed his skill chart after reaching level 2. Despite slow progress, he realized it had taken 3 years just to reach 659 proficiency points. points. Between sword training and daily chores, farming tasks and winter preparations often interrupted his routine. Even short training sessions offered only minor gains, but that strength still ensured peace in the village. The villagers praised him, yet Len smiled humbly, expressing no desire to leave the quiet countryside. A cavalry unit appeared on the ridge, prompting urgency among the villagers who recognized Lord Baron's men. The knights descended toward the village, and their commander approached respectfully, requesting forgiveness for the sudden arrival. Suspicion arose as a villager questioned their presence, unsure why such forces had come so unexpectedly. Len quietly observed from a distance, noting the insignias and assuming they served the local ruling baron. The visiting knight revealed the damage caused by a nearby beast, confirming the need for armed patrols. Several villages had already fallen victim to a swift, moving beast, leaving casualties and grieving survivors behind. Knights, though lacking leads, requested villagers to join a vigilance group to help subjugate the elusive threat. Len recalled the beast's ranking system, realizing a D-ranked creature required strength beyond common patrol units. Local residents were stunned. Only F-ranked beasts had ever appeared in the area until now. Plans to gather nearby knights were discussed, but reinforcements would take 20 days to reach Len's village. Plans were made to intensify forest patrols, though the villagers could only wait and hope for safety. The knights were offered rest, and Len began pondering what knowledge from the game might apply. Surprised to learn the man was the captain of the knights, Len showed respect without hesitation. While the horses were cared for, the knights mingled with villagers, enjoying drinks and brief respite together. With preparations complete, the captain departed on horseback as the villagers waved them off in farewell. As the knights rode away, they discussed Len's age and noted he possessed a unique skill. Back in the village, daily life resumed. Len requested details on the beast, but was reassured instead. He was shocked to learn his guardian once defeated a D-ranked beast alone, long before Len's birth. Together, they inspected the results of a successful hunt, the field filled with downed wild prey. The boars were prized for their meat, but larger predators often came seeking them as food. Len understood the plan. Reducing the boar population would discourage the beast from approaching the area. To minimize risk, his father began hunting in the afternoon, shifting his routine for better safety. Following the knight's warning, he explored deeper into the forest and stayed out until the sun set. Later that evening, Len voiced concern about the exhausting schedule while they rested in the bathhouse. Alpha eager to help, Len accepted the situation as his father apologized for neglecting sword training. Len quietly listened as his father expressed appreciation for helping at home during difficult times. They shared a peaceful moment in the bath, reflecting on their tranquil life that spanned 10 years. Time passed and the routine continued, until one night his father left for the forest again. By moonlight, Len realized his father hadn't returned, concern growing as the hours slipped by unnoticed. Despite the danger outside, Len prepared to search, but his mother decided to go check on him herself. Len insisted on joining the search, unwilling to let his mother go alone into the forest. Torches in hand, they ventured into the darkness, carefully stepping through unfamiliar terrain under the night sky. They spotted distant lights ahead, marking the forest entrance, guiding their cautious advance toward the path. A narrow bridge stretched across the river. Beyond it, the forest grew wilder, home to roaming beasts. So on the far side, someone sat slumped beneath a tree. Alarmed, his mother froze at the sight. A man slumped against a tree, unmoving, as a woman spotted him in the distance. She raised her torch in shock, instantly recognizing the familiar figure. Joy filled her voice as she hurried forward with her son. Both relieved he was alive and conscious. Len hesitated, confused by the location. Suspicion grew. Why would his father be alone in such a place? Despite his mother's warning, he rushed after her. Panic grew as they approached. The woman called out urgently, her torchlight revealing her husband still formed beneath the tree. Blood stained the man's clothes. Though breathing, his wounds were severe. His condition was worse than they feared. Blood dripping from his mouth, the wounded man struggled to breathe as Len watched, frozen in rising fear. Len crouched near his father, torch in hand, struggling to stay calm. The forest felt tense and unfamiliar. Suddenly, a massive boar burst from the trees, roaring furiously. Len barely managed to raise his weapon in time. The beast crashed into him, knocked to the ground. He fought to keep its fangs from sinking deeper. Without hesitation, his mother charged forward, swinging her torch at the beast's face to drive it away. Relief vanished instantly. Two more boars emerged from the darkness surrounding them. Their odds were now far worse. Len felt a surge of strength. His body responded faster than expected, allowing him to resist the boar's weight. With effort, he pushed the creature off. The beast stumbled away, only for others to charge forward again. A sudden impact caught him off guard. The next attacker lunged in with terrifying force and relentless momentum. Len retaliated instinctively, slashing upward. The beast collapsed after a single blow, shocking him with the result. Another enemy leapt in, but he didn't hesitate. With a precise strike, Len brought it down midair. Len's eyes widened as the last enemy fell, the remaining beasts panic retreating from the unexpected resistance. He stood panting beside his injured father, sword in hand, surprised at the strength he'd gained through training. Morning came peacefully. Birds chirped outside the cottage where an old woman prepared medicine with calm, steady hands. Inside, she explained the father's condition had stabilized, though uncertain his worst danger had finally passed. Gratitude filled the room. Yet Len couldn't shake the doubt his father's defeat seemed too unnatural against such foes. Len stared at his unconscious father. The pieces finally fit something stronger than wild beasts had struck him down. A terrifying thought formed. Deep in the forest lurked a dangerous, wanted monster. Reinforcements wouldn't arrive in time. Worry crept in. If that creature reached the village, it could attack everyone, his mother and the townspeople. Crossing the bridge, Len searched for what he could do. He refused to sit back and wait helplessly. Locating the fallen boar, he quickly prepared to bring it back. Hoping to avoid drawing the monster's attention, Len watched in surprise as strange energy from the boar was drawn into his ornate bracelet. A screen appeared confirming his suspicions. His proficiency with the demon sword technique had increased after the absorption. He realized the bracelet reacted only to monsters he defeated personally, absorbing their internal demon stone energy. Standing before his mother, Len declared his intent to take over his injured father's duty and protect everyone. With a heavy heart, he acknowledged the danger. Still, he felt responsibility. No one else could fight for them now. Len asked to protect the village until reinforcements arrived. His mother listened silently, torn between fear and trust. That night, she stayed by her husband's side, unable to sleep. Dawn eventually broke with quiet resolve. Permission was granted. Len could enter the forest so long as he returned safely before sunset. Before departure, she warned him not to go too deep. The Tsurugi rock would serve as his guide. Then Len ventured forward, recalling a powerful boss from the game located near that landmark. He prepared cautiously. A sudden rustle broke the silence. Len spotted a charging boar and instinctively prepared his stance. Though startled, he steadied himself and attempted magic. He called forth vines from the forest floor. The spell succeeded. Ivy burst from the ground, wrapping tightly around the creature and halting its advance. Amazed by the result, Len watched the trapped beast struggle. His magic had worked better than expected. Despite having the chance, Len hesitated. He knew he should finish it, but couldn't bring himself to strike. Len seized the opportunity to train, drawing his blade as 2 boars charged from the brush. By day's end, he returned with 12 boars, tightly bound and dragging behind, astonishing the villagers. Continuing into the woods, Len dispatched another beast undeterred, pressing deeper beneath the forest canopy. The second and third days brought more success, 12 more. Then even greater numbers followed with effort. On the 4th and 5th days, Len's haul grew enormous, yet the marked monster never appeared. Len wiped his sweat and glanced at the bracelet. Unlocking the demon's sword of metal felt near. Returning home, then he found the atmosphere tense. Urgency filled the air as his father's condition worsened. Rushing forward, Len questioned his mother. Her silence and trembling hands hinted at something deeply wrong. She explained the truth. Despite using rare herbs, his father was barely clinging to life. Shocked and confused, Len demanded answers, yet even his mother didn't know how it happened. An elder examined the last herb with worry. Supplies were nearly gone and time was running out. Despair settled in. The mother broke down, knowing everything would be used before morning came. A village woman rushed in with urgency, offering a lead. Her husband knew something that could help. Len sprang into action, demanding answers. He asked about the herb's location, hope clinging to his voice. Granny Rig revealed the truth. The herb once grew near Tsurugi Rock, but had vanished decades ago. Len stared at the herb's samples in disbelief. The same extinct plant now sat before him. He recognized it instantly. Rondo grass, a healing item from his past life's memories of the game. Thou warned of the forest danger. Len doubted the herb's extinction without verifying it for himself. Despite the growing darkness, he raced towards Tsurugi Rock, determined to act before it was too late. Time pressed on. His father's life hung in the balance. Len couldn't afford to hesitate anymore. Len ran deeper into the woods, ignoring the lurking beasts above. He refused to let despair win. Eventually, he reached the towering Tsurugi Rock. Exhausted and breathless, he scanned the ground for signs of life. As expected, the base held nothing. Len decided to ascend, relying on natural magic to aid his climb. Under moonlight, he climbed steadily. His gaze caught something unusual growing near the ridge's edge, pulling himself over the cliff. Len finally saw it, an entire field blooming with rondo grass. Atop the glowing summit, Len confirmed the truth. Rondo grass still grew in the wild. Kneeling to harvest, he felt confident. The amount gathered could finally save his father's life. life. However, nearby remains caught his eye. Not just animal bones, but decorative relics lay buried beneath the plants. Eunice crept in. Len descended cautiously, instincts alert as he gripped both herb and blade tightly. Suddenly, several boars emerged from the brush. Surrounded, he readied himself for another unexpected confrontation. Len fought fiercely, cutting through the boars with precision as they lunged at him from all sides. But something felt off. The creatures weren't attacking. They appeared to be retreating in panic. A sharp breath froze in his chest. Glowing eyes and jagged fangs emerged from the dark. He stood still as the massive beast revealed itself atop the ledge. Realization struck. It was the wanted monster Moonlight. Framed its silhouette. Thick tendrils moved unnaturally around its body, radiating overwhelming presence. Len stood frozen as the enormous beast loomed above, its tendrils swaying under the night sky. Identified at last, the creature revealed its name, Chief Wolven, a D-rank unique monster exuding deadly power. Under the moonlight, Chief Wolven's howl echoed across the forest, its strength radiating through the night air. Len dashed through the tall grass, gripping his sword tightly as he followed the creature's fading presence. The beast lunged without warning, forcing him to roll aside, the claws slicing trees like paper, gathering his stance. Len observed carefully. This was no ordinary monster, its movements sharp and unnaturally precise. A sudden gust erupted, leaves scattered violently. Len's eyes widened as he realized the creature commanded wind magic. Len lay on the ground, breath ragged as the monstrous wolf gathered violent whines around its body. Realization struck. Its power allowed invisible hands to strike and steal, making escape nearly impossible. Though fear gripped him, retreat wasn't an option. He steadied his sword, mind racing for strategy. A faint injury caught his eye. The beast's leg bore a wound that hadn't healed properly. Shock filled him. Memories surfaced of his father's hunt. That scar might be his father's doing. Len realized the beast's hesitation came from its lingering wound, the same one his father inflicted. Memories of his injured father surfaced. The knight had risked everything to protect their village. Determination replaced fear. He could not falter where his father had stood. Retreat was no longer an option. The monster unleashed a furious gale, yet Len steadied himself, weaving vines with his nature magic. Roots surged forward, binding the wolf's limbs. Even briefly restrained, it was enough. Len had seized his chance. Len leaped high, sword raised, striking toward the restrained beast wrapped tightly in his summoned vines. The impact landed with force, driving his blade deep as energy rippled violently through the forest ground. Cracks spread across the weapon's surface, shocking him as fragments of the blade began to scatter. He stared at the hilt, disbelief filling him. The enchanted sword of wood had reached its limit. Then Len stumbled back, realizing the danger. The vines weakened, and the beast's counterattack loomed faster than before. Len's body trembled as mana surged uncontrollably, pain striking through him from the attempt to resummon the sword. Despite exhaustion, he swung his weapon again, deflecting the beast's charge with desperate precision and sheer willpower. The wolf retaliated fiercely, tossing him aside like a ragdoll. Dust and blood filled the air. Struggling to rise, Len hid behind thick roots, gasping for breath as the beast's growl echoed closer. Drawing on his last strength, he summoned vines from the earth, forming barriers to delay the relentless foe. Len's strength faded rapidly, his body trembling as pain surged and vision blurred from overusing his mana. Desperation struck, yet his thoughts turned to the herb clutched in his hand, a chance to recover. Memories of his injured father stopped him. Using it now would leave none for his recovery. Resolve hardened as his bracelet glowed faintly. Awakening power dormant within a weapon formed from his will. The beast's roar shattered the calm. Debris swirled as Len braced himself, ready for the next assault. Len struggled to remain hidden as the beast advanced, vines buying only a few seconds. With no mana remaining, he sprinted toward the fallen boars, chasing one last hope of survival. Magic stones within the corpses held power. Absorbing just 3 could unlock a stronger weapon. AEO's system prompt confirmed it. The demon sword of metal was now accessible. He had to act fast. Vines erupted once more, enhanced by the new sword's energy, trapping the beast in a dense snare. A massive wolf emerged through the trees, forcing the boy to retreat behind a rocky outcrop. Vines restrained the beast briefly, allowing him to flee with his remaining strength toward fallen boars. He arrived at the bodies, hoping to extract the last bits of mana from their stones. Unlocking the demon's sword of metal, he prepared to strike if his wooden sword failed again. With everything unleashed in one final blow, the blade pierced upward in a decisive full-force attack. Len launched a decisive blow, his blade piercing the great wolf's head in one clean strike. Panting from exhaustion, he watched as his sword absorbed the creature's magic stone, changing form. Though victorious, Len's body failed him. He collapsed, unable to move, whispering silent thoughts to his parents. From the shadows of the forest, riders emerged. Len's hazy vision caught approaching figures ears drawn by the battle's cry. A cavalry unit surrounded the fallen beast. One rider called out, hoping someone would respond from the scene. Knights from Clausel urgently arrived, requesting to take Len inside without formal introductions or delay. One knight carried the unconscious boy, recognizing him. A shocked woman rushed over, calling out his name. While unconscious, Len clutched a bag tightly. Inside, they discovered a rare plant, rondo grass. Emotion overwhelmed her as she embraced Len. Relief and sorrow mixed as tears fell on his shoulder. Far away, the astounding news spread. Len Ashton had slain the chief Wolven alone, an unthinkable feat. 2 months passed. Rumors spread about a boy in the territory who defeated a D-rank beast. Len Ashton, now recognized for his ability, advanced his sword summoning skills and gained new magic swords. Through the chief Wolven's defeat, Len obtained the magic sword of Bandit, unusual in both form and effect. Ignoring warnings, Len ventured into the forest again, gathering herbs despite his still recovering condition. Later, while riding back, he thanked the knights for their support, acknowledging their timely arrival had saved him. While traveling, Len revealed a bag of treasures once hidden by the chief Wolven. These rare materials sold to the Lord granted the village a tax exemption and future stability back home. Len was praised for his achievements. His father proudly acknowledged the boy's growth. Among the spoils, Len requested the legendary Silesia Pearl, a rare item dropped by the beast. Finally, he received the treasured bracelet, granting him permission to wear it openly with pride. Grateful voices surrounded Len, praising his courage and the risks he took to protect others. At last, peace returned to the nameless village, bringing calm after a long period of unrest. In quiet routines, Len resumed daily life, helping with chores while villagers embraced the restored normalcy. While working outside, he spotted a girl by the tree. She wasn't someone from the village. With a gentle smile, the mysterious girl introduced herself. Her name was Lisha, and she sought Len. Len confirmed his name, though something about the girl stirred a vague memory deep within him. Lisha stepped forward with a confident smile. Their unexpected meeting marked a turning point. As they stood beneath the tree, fate quietly shifted, signaling the beginning of an entirely new chapter. Under the blooming tree, Len met a mysterious woman who called his name with calm certainty. Her gentle smile carried familiarity, as though she had long awaited this destined encounter between them. Drawing two swords effortlessly, Lisha's expression shifted from warmth to focus, her stance hinting at hidden strength. Len hesitated, confused by her confidence. Questions filled his mind, yet her gaze allowed no retreat. In an instant, Lisha advanced with fierce precision, her blade cutting through the air to test his resolve. Then Len blocked the strike just in time, stunned by her speed and the strength behind it. Before he could react, Lisha's blades whirled, overwhelming multiple opponents and leaving them scrambling to defend. She acknowledged his effort with a smile, impressed by how well he adapted under pressure. Len questioned the sudden sparring. Lisha reassured him, revealing the blades were dulled for safety. As their swords clashed again, she proposed stopping the match before either of them got truly hurt. Len stepped in swiftly, determined to bring their match to a decisive conclusion without delay. In one fluid motion, he pinned Lisha to the ground, claiming a narrow, hard-earned victory. Their hands touched briefly. She froze, eyes wide, stunned by the unexpected closeness and gesture. Startled, she pushed him away, shouting in frustration. Len stumbled back, confused by her reaction. Ignoring the chaos, then Lisha stood again, sword raised. Her resolve remained strong until soldiers called her back. Len stood frozen as vice. Some approached with his knights, arriving unexpectedly on horseback. Before anyone could respond, a noble girl stepped forward and calmly requested to explain the situation. Raising a sealed letter, she declared herself her father's envoy, carrying a message for the Ashton family. She praised their recent victory and revealed her father's trust in Len's promising future. Finally, she introduced herself as Lisha Clausel, revealing her role as the renowned scientist of White. Then Len stood in shock, holding Lisha's unconscious body as a wave of dread filled the room. Later, Vice reprimanded Lisha for moving alone, while Len casually deflected the situation. Internally, Len recognized her as the girl destined to die in the original game scenario. Despite the confusion, the group gathered peacefully, sharing tea while Len questioned how events had shifted so drastically. In the game, Lisha was strong, untouchable, and never romanceable, known to players as the unconquerable heroine. Lisha arrived and announced her curiosity piqued by tales of Len's battle prowess. Sparring confirmed it. A long journey had brought her to the remote frontier village. Len was left speechless. He never imagined the feudal lord's daughter would come just to evaluate him personally. Modest in tone, Len confessed the victory belonged more to his father than himself. Yet Lisha saw something rare: honesty and restraint. She invited him to Clausel, determined to test him again. Thoughts lingered after the match. She trained hard and seemed to genuinely enjoy sword practice. He politely declined her offer, preferring to stay. quietly. She sensed hesitation and questioned his intent. Flustered by her words, he explained his reason: protecting the village and his father mattered most. Dinner passed quietly, yet tension and reflection remained. Moonlight blanketed the home with quiet resolve. The next morning, a calm routine resumed. He fed the horses, yet couldn't ignore the sword's weight. Len stepped outside, expecting a quiet moment, only to find himself facing physical chores again. Before he could complain, Lisha arrived with a sword, confidently announcing she had full permission. Kneeling beside his own sword, Len hesitated. Refusing to fight seemed easy until she made a threat. With a forced smile, Len picked up his sword, pretending he was simply in the mood. Lisha made her conditions clear: if she won, he would follow her to Clausel and explain everything. Then Len stood uncertain, facing Lisha in a friendly but tense duel. Her terms left no escape. With a bright smile, Lisha charged forward. Len tightened his grip and raised both swords. Their blades clashed as Lisha launched swift, relentless strikes. Len responded with quick, focused defense. Caught off guard, Len blocked instinctively. Lisha questioned his skill, still driven by determination to win. Even as the scientist, Lisha couldn't bear losing. She struck again, forcing Len to the ground. Lisha launched a fierce counterattack, kicking Len backward. He questioned her reason for bringing titles into battle. As she charged again, Lisha explained her strength, swordsmanship, physical skill, and sacred magic made her formidable. The frustration of potentially losing was overwhelming. She poured her emotion into a powerful forward assault. Declaring she'd get serious, Lisha pushed forward with full strength, determined to defeat him this time. Len noticed her speed and power had surged. Her sacred magic had activated, amplifying all her abilities. Lisha's spinning attack blended sacred magic, swordsmanship, and agility, displaying the full extent of her power. Len could barely keep up, acknowledging how strong she became when fully focused and relentless. He questioned her delay in using magic. She explained Weiss's rules and her hesitation without permission. Still mid-air, Lisha pressed on with fierce resolve, ready to finish the duel decisively. Determined not to lose, Len raised his blade and prepared to counter with equal strength. Len sharpened his focus as Lisha's movements became more predictable. Their swords clashed in rapid rhythm. Although he remembered her strength from the past, she had clearly grown much stronger since then. Len's blade stopped just before striking. Lisha froze, caught off guard by his precise control and speed. Lisha stumbled back, shocked. Len didn't press the attack, holding his stance while she processed what happened. In a sudden shift, Len spun under her guard, sweeping her off balance with swift precision. Then Lisha fell hard onto the grass, the moon above her spinning, her chest rising with shock. He stood firm, gaze locked on her. Calmly, he declared his victory without triumph or cruelty. Eyes wide, Lisha stared up, disbelief washing over her. She had never imagined such a defeat. But as Len lowered his sword, she rose, determination burning. Her body refused to give. In tears forming, Lisha steadied herself. She clenched her fist, raised her blade, and stood tall again. A man praised Len's skill with calm applause, acknowledging the difficulty of defeating Lisha and her magic. He spoke with recognition, noting Len's training and past victory against a powerful beast, admiring his growth. Standing under the moonlight, he turned to Lisha, reminding her of the strength Len had displayed. Lisha, lowering her gaze, accepted his words and admitted her awareness of how far behind she was. Despite the loss, she thanked Len sincerely, recognizing the duel as a valuable experience she would carry forward. Then Lisha quietly excused herself to rest, and Len, still processing the match, returned her parting words. The older knight approached Len, apologizing for the situation and expressing gratitude for the hospitality they received. He explained that Lisha had grown too confident and the match served as a humbling reminder. Although he wished to stay longer for further training, their group needed to depart the next morning. He revealed Lisha's greater role, negotiating with her father and helping restore peace across nearby troubled villages. Lisha's achievements were remarkable, having mastered both the sword and scholarship at an elite academy. Though Len once viewed her as overconfident, then he began to see her deeper sincerity and strength. A memory struck him, an ominous scene from the game's future where tragedy had already unfolded. He realized that her past wasn't well documented in the game, making this early meeting unexpected. As dawn broke over the quiet village, the peaceful morning stood in contrast to his unease. Lisha lay awake through the night, frustration building as doubts refused to let her rest. Determined, she poured her thoughts onto paper, composing a personal message before their morning departure, alongside a formal letter of thanks. Then she decided to invite Len to Clausel herself. However, upon reading her note, Weiss gently pointed out the emotional tone it unintentionally carried. Realization struck her as he described it. Her words read less like an invitation and more like a love letter. Lisha defended her intentions, insisting her admiration came from genuine respect for the boy's talents. Despite her clarification, Weiss explained the tone still resembled that of someone infatuated and emotional. Quoting directly from her note, he listed nested phrases filled with praise and heartfelt urgency. She tried once more to explain her enthusiasm, claiming any skilled warrior would inspire such desire to improve. Reading it again, Lisha finally accepted the truth. Her words echoed more like affection than formal invitation. While crouched in regret, Lisha blamed her inexperience with personal letters for how poorly it turned out. Morning arrived and the traveling party gathered at the village edge preparing for their quiet departure. Though her farewell followed a dramatic clash, she left without fanfare, riding ahead with lowered gaze as the wind picked up the letters she meant to discard slipped from her bag unnoticed. Unaware of its escape, she continued on, never realizing the letter was now lost behind her. Then he examined the demon's sword of banditry, realizing he hadn't tested its ability yet. Spotting a bird, he threw the blade, which struck midair and caused the bird to jolt. A feather materialized in his hand, proof that the weapon had indeed stolen something from the target. Before he could process the success, another item appeared unexpected, old paper carried by birds fluttering away. Upon opening it, he discovered a heartfelt letter, its words unfamiliar yet personal, causing him to pause. Len found a letter lying quietly in the woods, its elegant parchment suggesting important intent. He wondered if the message was from the girl he knew, recalling her distant gaze. As he tried to process the situation, distant sounds of hooves broke through the silent forest path. He turned sharply to see a group of knights approaching, clearly not part of Weiss-sama's escort. Recognizing the unfamiliar crest on their banner, Len tightened his grip on the letter, bracing for trouble. Len noticed the approaching knights bore a crest unfamiliar to him, clearly distinct from Clausel's emblem. Mon armored rider halted before him, the others forming a loose circle as tension filled the forest. Suddenly, the lead horse reared up violently, its rider gripping the reins while keeping sharp eyes on Len. Rather than attack, the knight questioned Len's identity, seeking confirmation of his connection to the Ashton domain. Without hostility, the knight revealed their purpose. They were envoys sent to deliver a message from Viscount Givens. Although confused by the mention of Viscount Givens, Len realized these nobles held higher authority than his baron. He led the knights to his family's estate, where their unexpected arrival drew the attention of everyone present. Inside, the knight formally met with Len's bedridden father and the household, establishing the visit's purpose. The officer surprised Len with a message directly from the Viscount, offering him a position under his command. Before he could respond, another group asserted their claim, revealing Len had already been invited elsewhere first. The knight from Viscount Givens remained calm, asserting that Len hadn't accepted any offer yet, leaving the choice open. In response, the Clausel representative reminded him that the village fell under their domain and demanded prior consultation. Acknowledging the point, the visiting knight accepted the rebuke with composed grace and agreed to follow proper channels next time. With a parting promise to return, the envoy and his group rode off, leaving the air thick with uncertainty. Later, Len's father concluded the visit was a political move to absorb their village amid growing factional tension. Acknowledging the truth, one of the knights admitted that the political tension they witnessed stemmed from factional conflict. Len reflected on the growing power divide, recalling that the Leomel Empire's nobles were aligned with one of three factions. The Imperial faction, proud and loyal to the Lion King's legacy, believed rule should stay within the royal family. Anathir, the hero faction, was composed of noble houses descended from heroes who once vanquished the Demon King. Supporters of the hero faction, including Viscount Givens, aimed to weaken imperial control and promote broader equality within the empire. The final political group, known as the neutral faction, included those who avoided conflict and respected both sides. Len questioned whether it was truly so easy for a village to change domains under another noble. Speculation grew as they discussed hidden motives behind targeting a minor village, hinting at strategic interests in the Clausel family. Despite wishing to avoid involvement, Len realized they might already be caught in a larger political scheme. Unsure of Viscount Givens' true intentions, he decided it was best to remain cautious moving forward. Len read through the letter and questioned whether the cited lack of military strength referred to the recent Woven attack. His father clarified that the Ashton family historically maintained strong forces and the incident itself was a rare exception. Reflecting on earlier advice, Len recalled that feudal lords could face consequences if monster damage became recurrent. This raised concerns that the Clausel family might be held responsible if neighboring areas reported serious destruction. Based on the wording and timing, Len began to suspect that Viscount Givens was exploiting this issued pressure Clausel. Len proposed that Viscount Givens might be exploiting the recent chaos to undermine Baron Clausel's reputation. He speculated that Givens could offer protection while using the accusation as leverage to pull the Baron into his faction. The group considered the worst-case scenario that everything had been orchestrated in advance through long-term manipulation. A darker possibility emerged: the Chief Woven incident itself might have been part of Viscount Givens' strategy. One of them hesitated at the idea Lisha, unsure if the Viscount would truly go as far as releasing a monster. Although Len admitted he lacked evidence, he believed the theory explained the recent events too well. The armored knight praised Len's deduction, revealing that the Baron himself had similar concerns regarding Given's motives. Despite the speculation, Len emphasized that everything was conjecture and warned everyone to stay cautious moving forward. With urgency, the knight promised to inform the Baron and bolstered defenses while the injured man resolved to rise again. As Len watched their departure, he reflected on how his new path might force him to confront his former allies. Though uncertain of his suspicions, Len shared his theory, admitting he lacked solid proof but sensed intent. His concerns, surprisingly accurate, earned recognition, and others revealed the Baron himself had similar doubts. Despite being speculative, Len stressed the need for caution, urging everyone to remain vigilant against threats. His warning prompted swift agreement. A messenger would inform the Baron, and others prepared to act accordingly. Riding away with resolve, Len accepted the looming conflict, knowing former allies might soon become enemies. While calmly reading, the girl informed him the madam was with Rigdano elsewhere. Shocked by her unexpected presence, the boy froze, completely caught off guard. Then she scolded him sharply for yelling so suddenly, clearly irritated by the noise. Ignoring his question, she confidently declared she came because he wouldn't visit Claus. Lisha demonstrated the use of a magical shower device, astonishing Len with its modern functionality. She explained that the device could pull water from the crystal orb, eliminating the need for wells or rivers. Although Len voiced concern about its value, Lisha clarified it was an old tool she had repaired. Shifting the conversation, she brought up an incident involving Viscount Givens and the difficulties in confronting powerful nobles. Lisha calmly reflected on the legacy of saints, noting that without true achievement, the title held no weight. Len reflected on the legacy of great heroes before Lisha asked him to visit her father. Inside a quiet room, she placed her hands over the unconscious man and began healing him. The man sat up moments later, expressing gratitude for her efforts as Len looked on in surprise. After they left the room, Len realized she had healed him in the past without telling him. Suddenly, outside in the snow, Lisha launched into a training duel, forcing Len to defend with full focus. Len noticed Lisha's movements had become sharper, realizing she had trained intensely in a short time. During the duel, she stumbled unexpectedly, and he instinctively caught her before she could fall. Surprised by the close moment, she paused as he calmly asked if she was all right. Despite her exhaustion, Lisha was shocked that Len hadn't shown the slightest sign of fatigue. Even while panting, she smiled faintly, admitting that crossing swords with him was her most enjoyable time. As snow continued falling, Lisha promised a rematch at dawn, determined not to lose next time. Over the following days, she remained in the village, training and studying together with Len. After their time together, she departed with her escort, leaving Len uncertain about her return. Seasons shifted, and with spring's arrival, new events began to stir in the quiet countryside. By then, the man Lisha had healed had fully recovered, chatting with Len as they carried supplies. A group of knights arrived unexpectedly, catching Len and the others off guard with their presence. One of the knights, speaking with authority, announced he came on behalf of Viscount Givens. He claimed to bring favorable news specifically directed at Len, though the atmosphere felt increasingly tense. The knight offered an invitation to a prestigious Imperial Academy, promising support for Len's special enrollment. Everyone stood in stunned silence, processing the surprising proposal and unsure of what consequences might follow. The offer to place Len in the elite class shocked everyone, as even regular admission was difficult. With powerful political connections backing the invitation, the knight assured them it was a rare opportunity. Len calmly refused, stating he had no intention of leaving the village or pursuing nobility. His refusal was firm, fueled by the knowledge that the academy would bring him closer to a future he feared. Looking up at the knight, Len explained that the life he lived now already gave him purpose and fulfillment. The knight challenged Len's guardian, questioning why he wouldn't wish for his son to become nobility. Despite the emotional pressure, the man responded that what mattered most was Len's own will. Offended by the refusal, the knight declared they would deliver the rejection message themselves and turn cold. As he walked away, the knight expressed disappointment, leaving Len and his guardian standing in silence. A few days later, after the envoy had departed, Len quietly reflected on the choice he had made. Lisha returned once again, but this time she appeared exhausted and was carried in someone's arms. Len watched with surprise as she arrived unexpectedly for a third visit, clearly unwell. Inside the house, she lay in bed while a knight explained that her condition worsened just days ago. When Len asked for details, he was told it was a rare illness triggered by high magical power. Though not contagious, the disease was unpredictable and dangerous, with symptoms that could strike without any warning. Then Lisha's high fever posed serious risk, and she was advised to rest for at least several weeks. After a few days passed, her condition stabilized, and Len was invited to see her. He entered her room and noticed her cheeks were still flushed with lingering heat. With a quiet voice, Lisha apologized, expressing guilt for falling ill so soon after arriving. Though she blamed herself for troubling others, Len insisted she hadn't done anything wrong and urged her not to bow. Lisha explained that the purpose of her journey was to demonstrate loyalty to the crown. Despite her quiet nature, she believed that visiting the villages as the saint would send a strong message. However, her own weakness frustrated her, and she clenched her hands in silent self-blame. She continued criticizing herself, feeling like nothing she did had succeeded, only causing inconvenience to others. Tears welled up as she confessed that in her current state she was dishonoring even her late mother's memory. Lisha recalled how her mother once embraced her, warmly celebrating the prophecy of her sacred birth. Though she often stared at her mother's portrait in the hallway, she had never heard her voice or felt her presence. Whenever she wore the old ceremonial outfit, she imagined her mother's encouragement, drawn from memories she never truly owned. Despite Len's support and the expectations around her, her efforts constantly fell short, leaving her burdened by silent disappointment. Resolving to move forward, Lisha quietly decided never to return to that place of hollow comfort again. Lisha, with a steady gaze, declared that this visit would be her final one. She reminded Len of the sacrifices his family made, rejecting even prestigious offers to remain loyal. With sincere regret, she apologized for troubling his household multiple times. Her expression filled with quiet remorse. Placing her hand to her chest, she expressed deep gratitude for his support, while Len realized her intentions were pure. Yet beneath his calm face, Len acknowledged the truth. The one hiding secrets all along was actually himself. Len stood in silence. Lisha sat quietly near the bed, and the dress hung between them. Lisha quietly sat on the bed, her expression calm, yet weighed down by unspoken decisions. She mentioned her intent to write a letter to her father, revealing thoughts she had long delayed. Len, standing nearby, offered his own supplies without hesitation, revealing that the room she borrowed was his. Grateful but regretful, Lisha acknowledged the trouble she had caused, while Len dismissed her concern with quiet composure. Before she left, Len politely asked her to bring a fire-based magic tool next time. If convenient, Len clarified that his request was only meant for her next visit, not a demand. Lisha, visibly frustrated, reminded him that she had said not to come again to avoid trouble. He calmly pointed out that suddenly confronting someone would naturally cause hesitation, regardless of the circumstances. Offering a solution, Len proposed future meetings be limited to the village and only with advance notice. With a gentle smile, he assured her they could talk again once she had recovered fully. After leaving the room, Len covered his face, overwhelmed by his own awkward behavior and remarks. Left behind in silence, Lisha stared at the door, questioning if his invitation was truly sincere. She sat quietly, realizing her headache had faded at some point, yet her thoughts remained unsettled. Rising from bed, she remembered the letter to her father and searched for the ink Len mentioned. Opening the small box, she discovered a mysterious paper inside, something unexpected that caught her attention. Lisha read the letter aloud, realizing it was filled with words praising strength, dignity, and courage. A vivid memory of an elder's voice echoed in her mind, calling it nothing less than a love letter. Her hands trembled as she clutched the paper, trying to comprehend how it ended up in Len's room. She panicked, convinced he must have read it, and blamed herself for letting it fall into his hands. Desperately, she denied any feelings for him, though her flustered words betrayed a deeper admiration she couldn't fully hide. Still clutching the letter, Lisha sat on the floor, confused by her own emotions. Frustrated, she questioned why the letter was kept so carefully, wondering if he had meant to treasure it. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling, silently asking what Len truly thought after reading it. The next day, knights and workers gathered, having agreed to assist with repairs and village tasks on her request. With duties divided, Len joined the repair team, while Lisha left to fetch medicine for someone in need. While the workers discussed building supplies near the field, Lisha quietly watched everything unfold from her window. The group remained hopeful that with a bit more rest she would recover and return to normal life. As clouds gathered above the mountains, rainfall steadily intensified, soaking the forest and surrounding hills. During work, Len and the others paused due to the downpour, deciding to take a brief rest nearby. Amid the rainfall, Len suddenly noticed a strange burnt smell in the air, triggering a quiet sense of unease. As Len mentioned the scent of burning, he suddenly realized it was coming from the direction of the house. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward the manor, only to see it fully engulfed in roaring flames. Shock gripped him as he saw the inferno consuming everything, thick smoke spiraling violently into the sky. While running closer, Len discovered the bodies of knights collapsed on the ground, lifeless and brutally struck down. Kneeling beside one, he saw the vicious wounds and concluded it was the horrifying work of a demon. Realizing Lizio was still inside the blazing manor, Len gritted his teeth and rushed straight into the fire. Inside he found more fallen knights, confirming the horrifying truth that the defenders had all been wiped out. As he advanced through the smoke, a cloaked figure with a twisted beast stood waiting in the corridor. The enemy was no ordinary foe. It commanded two monstrous creatures with wings and terrifying strength. Recognizing the threat, Len identified one as a man-eater, a powerful D-rank demon capable of devastating destruction. Lizio lay unconscious amid the flames as Len charged forward, calling out to her, desperately confronting the cloaked enemy. Len stood his ground, demanding the intruder step away from her immediately. Without warning, the creature lashed out, releasing a wave of energy that distorted Len's senses. Disoriented and weakened, then he fell to his knees, realizing he could no longer steady his body. Suddenly, a familiar scent drifted past him, the fragrance from the ornate jar Lizio had once held. The hooded figure released a powerful fragrance strong enough to subdue even a dragon. For days struggling to stay conscious, the boy knelt beside the unconscious girl, overwhelmed by the spreading scent. His fingers twitched as his vision blurred, flames crackled around him while his awareness slipped away. Everything vanished into darkness, and silence replaced the chaos as his body lost strength completely. Moments later, the clatter of wooden wheels stirred faint consciousness. He was now aboard a moving carriage. Len abruptly awoke on rough straw, wrists and ankles tightly bound in heavy iron restraints. Lizio lay unconscious nearby, her delicate frame showing signs of being similarly chained and mistreated. He quickly crawled over to check her condition, ignoring his own pain and the cold floor beneath. Relief passed through him as her chest rose faintly, a fragile sign she was still breathing outside. The wooden cart, a cloaked figure, warned them to stay silent and endure a few more days. Then Len clenched his fists as he realized they had been traveling for 4 days without pause. The cart creaked along the mountain path, surrounded by steep cliffs and thick forest mist. Far below, an endless valley stretched out beneath the towering mountains, confirming how far they'd been taken. He stared at their captor's back, demanding to know the reason behind their abduction. Unfazed, the hooded figure muttered that their enemy was a skilled summoner controlling 2 vicious D-ranked beasts. Len noticed Lizio's condition worsening, her breathing shallow and body trembling on the straw-covered floor. Realizing her life was in danger, he clenched his fists and swore not to lose her here. No matter the cost, he vowed to defy fate and drag her out of captivity alive. Len wandered through a dream, its weight pressing down as distant memories stirred inside him. He saw himself split and silent, standing in the void of memory. This was the dream of Len Ashton. In the past, fear kept him frozen, unable to gather herbs. He watched helplessly as his father died after fighting a monster. His hesitation cost a life. The village left unprotected after his father's death was overrun. Flames devoured homes, and many innocent lives were lost during the attack. Len found his mother lying wounded among the ruins. He clutched her weak body, overwhelmed by regret. He had promised to protect her but failed in the aftermath of the attack. Len held his wounded mother close, powerless to save her. Amid the ruins, a woman appeared, accompanied by armored knights. With calm precision, the woman raised her hands, her presence commanding attention in the silence. She knelt beside Len and his mother, beginning a ritual. Her gentle movements radiated warmth and light. To Len, she seemed like a saint descended to earth. Bound in chains, Len stared at the unconscious girl before him. Her identity was clear. She was the one from his past now. Riding through the forest in a wagon, Len wondered if their meeting had truly been fate. Len sat quietly in the wagon, uncertain why he dreamed of a past that never happened. That thought turned darker. A vision surfaced, him standing over a lifeless body, hand stained with death. Why would he take a life if their connection wasn't hostile? Doubt crept in. Maybe there had been a reason, one buried deep within memory. Before he could reflect further, the wagon jolted and Ligia stirred beside him. Both captives now, Len and Ligia, lay shackled on the floor. Len pleaded for the chains to be loosened, but the hooded figure dismissed him coldly, demanding he solve his own problems alone and restrained. The hooded figure reminded Len that they had already provided potions and herbs for days. There would be no further kindness. With the lid open, the figure warned Len not to shout. No one outside would hear. The magical tools blocked all sound except to the captor. Outside, night settled over the forest as the figure rested by the fire. Len worked in secret, using a metal pin to unlock his restraints. Finally free, he moved to Ligia's side, carefully offering her water from the shared canteen. His hands trembled as he tilted it toward her lips. A single drop slid down her face. Though unconscious, Ligia's lips parted slightly. She was still alive, and that was enough to give Len hope. Ligia let out a faint sound, realizing her strength was nearing its limit. Len knew they had to escape that night or lose their chance. Under the full moon's silent gaze, the world lay still. Len steeled himself for what had to come. He glanced at the captor sitting near the campfire, then turned his focus inward. No more hesitation. The moment had arrived. Chains glowed as Len summoned the iron demon's sword. With one strike, the enchanted blade shattered his restraints. The sword's edge was sharper than expected, cutting through the the chains was effortless. Confident in its power, Len pierced the wagon wall, testing their path to freedom. While the captor remained distracted near the fire, Len prepared Ligia and slipped quietly out of the wagon. Suddenly, monsters flying beast launched an attack from above. Len froze, eyes wide as danger closed in. One of the creatures descended rapidly, flames trailing from its mouth. Len shielded Ligia as debris rained around them. A devastating blast shattered the wagon into fragments. The cloaked captor and the beast were both caught in the explosion. In the chaos, Len tightened his grip around Ligia and struck back with a sweeping sword slash. Dust swirled violently as the power of his strike carved through the air, protecting them. Caught off guard by the sudden sword attack, the captor shouted in disbelief, demanding to know where Len got his weapon. Len had severed the rope binding the horse to the tree. A magical charm glowed as it activated, reacting to the escape attempt. Summoning a second blade, the wooden demon sword, Len took a defensive stance with Ligia in one arm. He fought off the incoming creatures, striking with swift precision. Nature itself responded. Vines burst forth, wrapping tightly around the enemy beast and the robed figure, pinning them in place. Ligia in his arms, Len charged toward the horse. The captor screamed in frustration and cast another spell. Len revealed the thief's demon sword, its sharp blade glowing as he readied himself to counterattack, riding. With Ligia, he narrowly avoided the enemy's magic blast. The captor, entangled in vines, looked shocked. The enemy's staff vanished without explanation. Panic flashed across his hidden face as he demanded an answer. Without delay, Len urged the horse forward, clutching Ligia tightly behind them. A winged beast took flight in pursuit. Just as escape seemed possible, a monster lunged at them. Escaping jaws rushed toward Len and Ligia from above. A massive black creature exploded from the tree's scales, ripping through the air like shrapnel. Len twisted in his saddle, protecting the girl, while his horse galloped beneath the creature's outstretched claws. Fangs snapped inches away, but they escaped into the forest, the creature's roar trailing behind them. From the settling smoke, a cloaked figure stepped forward, watching the fleeing horse with narrowed eyes. Dark energy surged from his arms as he summoned beasts from the forest with a single command. A chaotic stampede shook the forest as wild beasts and fanged creatures charged in frenzy. Panic spread. Len shielded Ligia, quickly realizing that someone had gathered the forest monsters in one massive wave. Without hesitation, he summoned his iron demon sword, the air crackling as power surged into his grip. Monsters lunged from every direction, but Len struck with overwhelming force, sending enemies flying in all directions. With Ligia secured in one arm and sword in the other, Len led their escape through the shattered horde. A sudden quake split the path as their horse galloped forward, narrowly dodging falling debris and enraged beasts. Without hesitation, Len turned and slashed through the air, shielding Ligia from the attack closing in behind. A monstrous creature unleashed a stream of flames, forcing them to veer aside and avoid the blast zone. They raced through the dense forest, chased by shadows, until the moonlit horizon marked their narrow escape. Far away in the northern city of Crousel, Ligia's father, Lord Lezard, received the news in disbelief. Vice, the old knight, bowed in shame. He accepted full blame for failing to protect Ligia's side. Despite his guilt, he pleaded to continue the search, vowing to rescue her at any cost. Lezard stood in silence, acknowledging Vice's loyalty. He believed Ligia had ordered the retreat for his safety. Resolving to act, Lezard slammed his hand down. He declared it was time to alert the capital. Before plans could be set in motion, a messenger interrupted. Officials from the Empire had already arrived. Envoy arrived at Crousel Manor bearing official orders from the Minister of Justice. Unsettling Lord Lezard, he presented a decree accusing Crousel's territory of spreading monster threats to neighboring lands, citing administrative failure. Through the quiet wilderness, Len guided the horse steadily, holding Ligia close to shield her from the cold. The mountains loomed in the distance, a silent witness to their escape. Under the shade of trees, Len prepared a remedy with practiced care. Though hesitant, Ligia accepted the bowl. She stared at the bitter mixture, her hands trembling slightly. Len remained still, watching her silently, placing his trust in her courage to endure. She drank slowly, grimacing at the taste. The bitterness made her cough, but she did not stop. Relieved, Ligia drank deeply from the flask Len offered her. Breathing slowed and color returned to her cheeks. Water rushed around their legs as Len carried Ligia across the shallow river. Fields opened before them as the mountains stood tall behind. Ligia sat upright on horseback, visibly stronger. Her fever had subsided, and she glanced at Len with quiet curiosity. Recalling his journey, Len spoke of a village passed 3 days earlier there. He traded hunted materials for medicine and supplies. Gratitude filled Ligia's eyes as she looked at him. Her words were brief but sincere. Len responded with a calm smile, unfazed, asking nothing in return for his care. While overlooking distant peaks, Ligia realized they crossed into the edge of the given Ish territory. Jagged peaks of the Baldel mountain range pierced the clouds, towering and sharp. The mountains marked the edge of the known world, stirring awe in both travelers as they stared silently from the mountain silhouette. Ligia identified their position with confidence. confidence curious. About their path, Len asked about the distance to Clausel Ligia, estimated 4 days, though she insisted they first confirm the safety of Len's family before proceeding further. With a reassuring tone, Len explained that his family hadn't been home that day. He believed they had likely found refuge by now, his voice calm and unwavering in trust. Though doubt lingered in Ligia's expression, Len offered another warm smile. From atop the ridge, Len and Ligia looked over the town below. As night fell, rain began to pour. They sought refuge under a rocky outcrop. Len quickly gathered dry twigs and ignited a fire, preparing for the cold, wet night ahead. A large bird-like creature lay beside the fire. Ligia stared in surprise, curious how Len captured it. Calmly, he explained his simple trap. Ligia's attention shifted to Len's sword. Suspicion grew as she recalled its strange power, though asked directly. Len evaded the question, keeping the nature of his weapon a secret. Later, Ligia uncovered a mysterious pendant from her belongings. Quietly, she studied it in her hand. Ligia examined the pendant closely, suspecting it to be a broken magical tool. Len admitted he had taken it while escaping from a mage who used beasts as weapons. He recalled the moment they were imprisoned in a wagon, the silence unnatural, contemplating its purpose. Ligia considered that it might serve as proof one day. Meanwhile, Len checked the food grilling over the fire, estimating it was ready to eat. The meal was simple skewered meat, seasoned only lightly. Len apologized for its appearance. Without a word, Ligia accepted the food. She took a small bite, her eyes watching Len briefly before focusing again on the quiet flame between them. After a hesitant first bite, Ligia instinctively covered her mouth. A gentle smile spread across Ligia's face. She quietly expressed that the food tasted good. Len's expression brightened, relieved and proud that his efforts had brought her comfort. Continuing their journey, the two passed ruined settlements, eventually finding rest near a forest. Beside a stream, Len washed their clothes while Ligia sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket. He hung her dress to dry, careful with each fold, mindful of her modesty. Noticing a mark on Ligia's cheek, Len quietly reached forward with care. He gently wiped away the dirt, catching her by surprise but never breaking the calm between them. Len watched Ligia closely, speaking calmly with a hopeful tone. He wished for her full recovery. Caught off guard by his words, Ligia's heartbeat quickened. Her cheeks remained red, drawing Len's concern. He gently placed a hand on her forehead to check her temperature. She froze, eyes wide open. Quickly pulling away, Ligia insisted she was fine. Her expression betrayed nervousness as she avoided his gaze. Later that night, she lay in bed, lost in thought, clutching a letter. Her mind replayed every word. No. On the rocky shore, Len approached Ligia, who sat quietly wrapped in a blanket, her expression unreadable under the fading light. She turned her head, strands of hair brushing her cheek, and looked at him with sharp, questioning eyes. A thought had been troubling her for some time. Holding a folded piece of paper, Ligia's hands trembled slightly. Len's eyes widened as he realized what she had found, something he never meant to reveal. From beside her, a small chest lay open, filled with old letters and keepsakes carefully stored. Len hesitated, words caught in his throat as Ligia demanded answers. She wasn't angry, only seeking truth. Inside the quiet room, Ligia held a box filled with shining stones, questioning Len's strange habit of collecting them. Her expression softened as she compared him to his father, who once shared the same fascination with magic stones. Later, Len sat alone, gazing at the chest. He wondered if his interest appeared childish or unusual to others. Memories resurfaced as he stared at the stones floating gently before him. Across the room, Ligia watched silently, waiting for his response. He finally understood his own reason. From the moment he first saw her, curiosity had taken root, shaping every choice since. Ligia's eyes widened as Len's quiet confession echoed in her mind, leaving her frozen in disbelief. When he repeated his words with calm honesty, she could only stare, unsure how to respond to his sudden sincerity. Flustered, she tried to hide her embarrassment, insisting it wasn't strange while granting him freedom to act as he wished. Len turned thoughtful again, analyzing his fascination with magical stones and their origins, searching for meaning behind his actions. By the riverside, he finally approached her, once more apologizing softly despite his awkwardness. His gaze carried quiet resolve. Ligia looked down, unsure whether to scold or smile, realizing that his curiosity had always been genuine. Ligia's voice trembled as she shouted her reply, trying to hide her rising emotions behind firm words. Her hands tightened around her cloak while thoughts raced. Being told such things left her uncertain and flustered. Len remained still, quietly listening as she hesitated. Her next words came out softer, almost unsure rather than resisting. She accepted the moment. Turning slightly, she spoke again, her tone more settled, as if giving in. Finally, she met his gaze directly with a determined expression. Ligia made her request clear. She'd call her by name. Len stood silently as the forest winds settled. The words had been spoken, their meaning still escaped him. Beyond the trees, a quiet village came into view, peaceful and distant. It offered no answers, only the next step. Upon arrival, Len approached an elder. Though she had no healing herbs to offer, she gave them feed. Instead, the beast rested quietly at his feet. With supplies in hand, Len explained their journey lacked a set destination. situation. Ligia remained quiet atop the horse, observing everything without a word. A local woman pointed them toward a town called Clausel. She mentioned it as a place adventurers often visited, somewhere to start perhaps. Ligia turned, her voice calm but firm. She shared rumors of the Clausel noble being punished soon. The news shocked everyone present. Confusion spread quickly as questions poured in. How could such a thing be happening? Although she didn't know the full story, the villager admitted she'd only heard fragments of what was coming. Some claim the noble had unleashed monsters on another territory. Len's eyes widened, realizing the situation was far more dangerous than expected. Without delay, the group took off across the plains. Len and Ligia rode hard, chasing answers before conflict reached them. Ligia raised her voice in disbelief, rejecting the accusation that her father had anything to do with summoning monsters. Her frustration grew to her. The entire claim sounded absurd. No one reasonable could accept it without doubt. Far to the north, the city of Clausel came into view, surrounded by mountains and guarded by silence. A carriage passed through its busy streets. Onlookers murmured as it came to a halt, curiosity spreading among the crowd. The door opened slowly. A well-dressed man stepped out with purpose. Soldiers flanked him as he was greeted by a knight who confirmed everything was ready. A confident noble laid out his plan, convinced that conquering the region would expand their faction's influence. The older strategist narrowed his eyes, silently calculating the risk behind the young man's ambition and boldness. Surrounded by banners and soldiers, he raised his cane. Reviving the declining power of Lionel was now his mission. With authority, he declared the first step, bringing down the House of Clausel. No one in the room dared object. The towering cathedral loomed over the city, its chime signaling the beginning of an important trial. An imperial official held up the decorated law book, declaring that judgment would proceed according to the empire's strict legal code. Rows of citizens filled the grand chamber. Murmurs spread as the audience learned the verdict would be publicly revealed the next morning, coinciding with the legal debate's conclusion. A wave of unease passed through the gallery. The armored man and his companion watched in silence from above, both weighing the risks of the unfolding process. Although the man accepted the grim outcome, the older one insisted on escalating the appeal to the capital's divine court, refusing to give up hope. Standing from across the chamber, the young man fixed his gaze on the composed elder. Doubt filled his voice as he observed the man's unreadable expression. Sensing defeat was inevitable, the elder leaned back, radiating confidence. Every gesture hinted at careful preparation. Under the moonlit sky, the young official reflected on the elder's overwhelming presence. Far from the courtroom, in a damp forest shelter, a cloaked figure lay near a fire. Beside them, a horse rested quietly, and another person kept watch, alert and uneasy, contemplating. In silence, the watcher realized an action would seal Clausel's fate. Someone had to intervene soon. Unable to sleep, the boy sat by the fire, thoughts tangled with doubt and urgency. From her bedroll, the cloaked girl responded softly, assuring him she preferred speaking with Len. With morning approaching, she urged immediate departure. They had no time to lose if they wished to return and testify the truth behind the abduction before the trial concluded. Still uncertain, Len wondered how much their words would matter. Without evidence linking the Duke to the scheme, the truth might still be dismissed. Though time was limited, the girl agreed they had to uncover something, anything, to expose the real mastermind. The two travelers pressed forward across wild terrain, passing ancient ruins and narrowing cliffs. They rode in silence through dense forests and rolling hills, the trail winding endlessly through the vast wilderness. Time weighed heavily as they remained distant from all signs of civilization. Eventually, the girl parted the forest branches and whispered that they were nearly there. Hope returned as the boy asked if they were finally safe. She nodded, explaining that Clausel's knights were likely nearby, offering reassurance their efforts had not been in vain. But before they could relax, a figure stepped from the brush ahead, unseen. Until now, someone had been watching their approach all along. Startled by movement ahead, both travelers widened their eyes in alarm as a shadow emerged from the path. A knight on horseback revealed himself, smiling with relief. His armor gleamed as he halted before them. Recognition struck instantly. They identified the emblem. This man belonged to the faction they were avoiding. He calmly explained they had been searching for the pair under orders. Their cooperation was expected before a response could form. Mounted soldiers surrounded them from all directions, sealing every escape route. The armored knight proposed they leave immediately, claiming they would escort the pair to a safe place. Neither responded right away. The tension between them grew, uncertainty shadowing their expressions. Breaking the silence, the girl turned toward Len and asked to handle the situation herself. Then he considered the risk, but ultimately gave a quiet nod, placing his trust in her decision. As the knight questioned their whispering, she shifted her focus and addressed him directly, voice steady. The girl responded cautiously, stating that their safety depended entirely on how the knight chose to answer. Without waiting further, she revealed a pendant, holding it out with confidence as proof of her claim. The knight examined the object, visibly confused. His narrowed eyes revealed no recognition or reaction. She calmly family explained its origin taken from the bandits who had captured them. The jewel held significance, has stolen magical equipment. Though the knight showed little interest, he offered to take it as evidence. His tone remained neutral, but distrust lingered in the air between them. Lisha firmly refused to hand over the pendant. She insisted the merchant guild would trace its origin instead. Unconvinced, the knight dismissed the idea. He doubted anyone could identify a single magic item within an empire so vast. Unshaken, Lisha explained that the pendant was no ordinary object. It was expensive and unique, with connections to the guild leader. She believed the source could be discovered. She continued calmly, noting that identifying the true source would reveal whether the item was acquired through the captor or a third party. With a steady voice and unwavering gaze, Lisha reminded them that someone tried to frame her and lend. The group of knights surrounded Lisha and her companion in the forest, waiting for her answer. Silence fell over them as tension hung in the air. One knight stepped forward, requesting custody of the magical item in Lisha's possession. He stressed its importance and implied they had the authority to keep it safe. Lisha firmly declined. She reminded them this was her family's domain and their jurisdiction held no weight here. The village incident also fell under her household's oversight. Caught off guard, the knight tried to object. However, Lisha's glare made it clear she wouldn't tolerate resistance. Turning away, Lisha voiced her disdain for knights who couldn't uphold justice. Lisha and Len calmly prepared to leave, but the knights remained stationed around them, silently observing. One knight stepped forward, insisting the artifact must be handed over for protection due to its value. Without hesitation, Lisha refused, asserting the knights had no authority and reminding them they were in her family's domain. The knight gritted his teeth at the rejection, frustration mounting as he struggled to regain control of the situation. Drawing his sword, he forcefully declared they would be escorted under guard, his tone no longer polite. Hearing Lisha call out, Len stepped forward without hesitation, his expression calm and determined. His hand reached for his weapon. With precise movement, he drew his blade and swiftly deflected the knight's incoming strike, protecting Lisha. Len countered with fluid force, disarming the knight in one motion. His stance remained focused, his defense unwavering. As the knight attempted to react, Len spun with speed and blocked again, leaving his opponent off balance. After subduing the threat, Lisha stepped in, holding a glowing seal. She declared that their interference was enough to draw the Count of Given into court. Thanks to Len's actions, she could now pursue judgment properly. The knight raises his voice, insisting that the pair needs protection for their journey. Offended, the knight blocks their path with a sword. Tension builds as he demands they travel with him, drawing his weapon with force. Len steps forward with swift precision. He draws his sword and intercepts the knight's strike, breaking the weapon cleanly. The knight charges again. Len counters with skill, pushing the knight back. The woman seizes the moment, channeling magic through her palm, releasing a radiant spell. The burst sends the knight flying as Len wields a magical wooden sword. Vines erupt to bind the remaining guards. The knight commander issued urgent orders as magical vines restrained his soldiers. Realizing the failure, he turned to report the situation himself. Len and Lisha galloped through the forest, evading pursuit. Determined, she gripped the reins tightly while he watched their flank. Beneath the glowing moon, two riders dashed across the rugged terrain, chased by unseen enemies through the cold mountainous night. Knights in full armor surged forward on horseback, their blades at the ready. They refused to let their targets escape so easily. Len turned his head, heart pounding. No matter how hard they pushed, the armored pursuers remained close, relentless and fast. Lisha leaned over her horse, whispering desperate encouragement. The village lay just beyond the hill. If they could endure a little longer, they might survive. Far ahead, high atop a towering rock formation, a hooded figure sat in silence. Two winged beasts hovered around him. The hooded figure extended his hand with eerie calm, having anticipated their arrival at this very place. A sudden quake shattered the ground. Boulders cracked open as power surged from the cliffside above. Len pulled Lisha close as their horse leapt forward, narrowly avoiding collapsing terrain and falling rock. They plunged into a forest of monstrous plants. Twisted vines, sharp leaves, and spore-covered fungi erupted around them. From within the chaos, unnatural creatures appeared. Flowers with eyes, rodents with gaping jaws and writhing roots. The beast tamer had summoned a living nightmare. Lisha urgently requested a sword. Though untrained in combat, she had once used it for fire starting. Meanwhile, the knights trailing them grew uneasy. The beasts were heading their way unpredictably and aggressively. Too late, they realized the danger. The swarm of rats surged forward, ignoring pleas and consuming all in their path. From atop the cliff, the cloaked summoner observed the carnage. Without remorse, the knights had simply been in the wrong place. Now surrounded by grotesque flower-eyed monsters and fungal beasts, Len and Lisha faced an impossible choice: surrender or fight through. Surrounded by a swarm of monstrous hornets, Len drew his sword, shielding Lisha from all sides. With one sharp motion, vines burst forth, entangling the airborne creatures and slamming them against the ground. Lisha joined the fray, her blades slicing through mushroom beasts. Side by side, they fought without hesitation together. together. They advanced, cutting a path through the grotesque forest. Len remarked on her growing strength. Fierce determination lit Lisha's eyes. She struck down a lunging beast, shouting that her training was meant to surpass Len. Len and Lisha charged ahead, slashing through bizarre monsters as their path exploded with light and chaos. Realizing the swarm was endless, Lisha concluded the beast tamer had to be stopped to escape alive. Suddenly, the earth cracked open. A monstrous creature emerged, shaking the ground with its sheer presence. Towering above them, the massive worm-like beast with triple jaws loomed closer, forcing Len to act immediately. He drew a black-bladed sword, pulsing with energy, his iron magic sword ready to confront the true threat. Len faced the monstrous triple-jawed creature head-on, sword raised, its gaping maw threatening to consume everything. A blinding surge of energy erupted as he slashed upward, splitting the beast's towering form in two. Shockwaves blasted the battlefield, sending debris flying. Even Lisha, momentarily stunned, marveled at Len's overwhelming strength. High above, the beast tamer observed silently. His expression shifted as Len's power reached the cliffside. Hair fluttering in the wind, the summoner acknowledged the distant strike. The blade's pressure had reached him. Under the moonlight, a mysterious elf stood in silence, his expression unreadable, cloaks swaying in the wind. Len's eyes widened in disbelief. He recognized the figure now revealed, once hidden in shadows. Surrounded by strange flora, Len and Lisha remained still. Questions clouded their thoughts. Why was he here? Without hesitation, the elf uttered a command. Power surged. The forest obeyed. A battle was inevitable. Dark branches reached across the sky, whispering the name of a feared figure, Yelku, the beast master. From atop a gnarled tree, Yelku watched the world below, cloaked in silence and power, known as one of the formidable bosses in the legend of the Seven Heroes. Even under the vast moonlit sky, adventurers crossing the continent could not forget the shadow he cast. As the boy rode into a forest crawling with monstrous creatures, Yelku stood waiting, surrounded by his summoned horde. Nonce, exiled from his homeland for cruel experiments on fellow elves, Yelku now faced Len, the destined challenger. Len questioned how fate brought him to this encounter. As punishment for his crimes against his kin, Yelku's arms bore powerful sealing marks chained tightly. Without the staff's assistance, his dual skills couldn't function, severely weakening his combat capabilities. Len speculated that Yelku's restraint might be linked to someone hired by the prince, seeking a way to remove the magical seal. Lisha, riding beside Len through a sea of monsters, urged him to consider how their actions could shift the outcome. Her words struck him. Len surprised questioned what she meant by changing their approach. Yelku stood atop a boulder, flanked by two ferocious beasts matching the strength of Shulfin. Realizing the threat, Len assessed that their chances of winning would plummet if both monsters attacked. Lisha's expression shifted subtly. That confirmation was exactly what she needed to proceed. Without hesitation, raising her sword, she reminded Len of her true identity, one who bore the title of the White Saint. In an instant, radiant energy enveloped them, blinding the field as Lisha unleashed her sacred power. A wave of brilliance engulfed the area as Len's body reacted instinctively to the sacred light. Yelku's gaze shifted from afar. He sensed the activation of something unfamiliar, a force surging through Len's weapon. Surrounded on all sides, Len and Lisha stood alone within a glowing barrier encircled by monstrous plant creatures. Lisha's eyes narrowed with determination. With precise control, she began casting a large-scale sacred formation beneath their feet. The spell expanded instantly, sealing off the hordes and intricate magical lines, dividing the battlefield into secured zones. Plant monsters were launched into the air, torn apart by the holy shockwave bursting from the spell's core. Yelk watched in silence, recognizing the unmistakable aura of divine magic radiating from the battlefield below. As the enemies reeled in confusion, Len and Lisha remained composed. Her sword glowed, ready for the next move. From atop their horse, they spotted Yelku's draconic beasts taking flight and retaliation. One of them unleashed a blazing breath. Flames surged toward Len and Lisha, roaring with deadly force, threatening to consume everything in their path. Engulfed by dragon fire, Len raised his sword as Lisha extended her arm, prepared to resist the flames. Without hesitation, she pushed back the inferno using sacred magic, her focus unwavering despite the blazing heat. A path of purified air split the flames, allowing the dragon to crash helplessly through its own attack. The beast struck down mid-flight, collapsed in agony. Its fall ignited panic among the surrounding monsters. Watching her, Len clenched his fists. With her at his side, he believed they could overcome anything. Flames raged across the battlefield, yet Len and Lisha pressed forward as a towering beast emerged from the blaze. Watching the chaos unfold, Yelku released another wave of fire, determined to overwhelm their resistance entirely. Through the burning sky, the two riders charged ahead, refusing to fall back. Their eyes were locked on the enemy. For a moment, time stilled as Len met Yelku's cold stare. Neither flinched. The outcome would be decided now. With both hands firm on his blade, Len struck in unison with Lisha's guiding reins, their will focused as one. A monster monster's creature rises from the flames, confronting a man on horseback. Watching from above, a cloaked figure stands poised. From the cliff, the cloaked man unleashes a powerful force. Spirits surge through the sky like a summoned army. Surrounded by spectral flames, the rider and girl press forward. Determined, the man raises his sword, ready to finish the battle in one decisive strike. The two share a silent, intense moment. Their eyes meet, filled with resolve and unspoken understanding. With a swift motion, he launches his attack. The sword gleams as it cuts forward, channeling immense power to end the chaos engulfing them all. A violent blast of force erupted from the ground, sending chunks of rock flying skyward as Lisha looked on, stunned. The explosion's aftermath stretched across the valley, smoke rising under the moonlight while fires consumed the remains of fallen monsters. Through the haze of burning corpses, a lone horse galloped across the battlefield while Len carried Lisha through the devastation. He dropped to his knees, holding her close, heart pounding as he scanned her pale, unconscious face for any sign of movement. Realizing the tall divine magic had taken on her weakened body, Len clenched his fists, silently blaming himself for her collapse. While Len remained beside Lisha, a dark presence stepped forward through the smoke, drawing his wary attention. Yelka emerged from the flames, his face veiled and body marked with strange runes pulsing with power. Lifting his hand, he observed the black fluid coating his skin, showing no sign of hesitation. A smirk crept across his face as he raised his voice in mock amusement, clearly relishing the moment. Breaking into unrestrained laughter, Yelk stood triumphantly, his madness echoing across the burning battlefield without fear or remorse. Yelk Oak stepped into a pool of his own blood, realizing its volume came entirely from his body. Staring at his dripping hands, he murmured with twisted clarity, acknowledging the seal's release and his suppressed urges. From a distance, Len shielded Lisha while watching Yelku kneel, torn between disbelief and the elf's unstable muttering. As Lisha stirred faintly in his arms, Len instinctively tightened his grip, unsure what Yelk would do next. With bloodshot eyes wide open, Yelka's expression shifted again. He wasn't finished. He still had someone left to kill. Yelk's fingers curled near his mouth as he reflected on the disturbing pleasure drawn from death itself. Across from him, Len stood protectively in front of Lisha, locking eyes with the elf, now overtaken by madness. Without warning, the earth ruptured beside Yelk as a monstrous black beast emerged, summoned from deep within the corrupted ground. Holding out a blood-soaked arm, Yelk invoked the creature by name, offering his own flesh to strengthen it. A wicked smile spread across his face as he raised his glowing arm high, ready for the monster to devour it. Yelk's grin twisted with madness as the shadowed beast opened its jaw, hunger gleaming in its fangs. Chains rattled around his body while dark energy surged, his hand glowing with a seal that resisted containment. Len watched in shock as the creature lunged forward, its teeth sinking deep into Yelk's arm without hesitation. Blood sprayed violently, yet Yelk only laughed louder, embracing the agony that would break most men. The monstrous form convulsed, devouring his arm entirely as Yelk's sinister aura grew even stronger amid the chaos. Yelks struggled against the chains of the sealing curse, his body trembling, his dark energy coiled tighter around him. With the ground cracking under immense pressure, he steadied himself, accepting that his end had arrived. A violent strike pierced through his chest, scattering blood and metal fragments as the cursed binding shattered under the explosive surge of his magic. From the depths of his fading soul, a monstrous shadow erupted, roaring into existence with blinding fury that shook the battlefield. Then Len watched in silence as light and darkness intertwined and Yelk's form dissolved into the storm of roots and divine energy, leaving only silence behind. Yelk lynched his jaw as the potion's effect surged through his body, dulling the pain but not the rage. Len held Yelk's unconscious form as a monstrous shadow emerged behind them, forcing him to retreat and draw his blade. Now fully entwined in a massive tree of dark roots, Yelk awakened with disbelief, realizing he had somehow survived the fatal blow. That relief twisted into madness, a deranged glare formed as he whispered his intent to kill with terrifying clarity. Determined to stop him, Len charged toward the winged beast that had formed from Yelk's unleashed curse, launching a powerful attack that shook the earth. Len stood his ground as the shadow beast surged forward, its massive limbs slicing the air with lethal force. In an instant, the beast claws smashed down, flinging Len backward with a thunderous impact that shattered debris and drew blood from his arms. Thou launched into the air by the creature's relentless assault, Len twisted mid-flight to brace against the mountain wall as the monster's claw ripped through the ground below. He barely landed on his feet before the beast lunged again, closing the distance with terrifying speed and a crushing leap. With no time to think, Len ducked under the beast's tail, his body scraping earth as shock waves erupted behind him. Len's body spun helplessly through the air, battered by the force, his vision blurring from the impact. Far away, Yelk remained silent within the twisted tree, his presence unsettling as Len sensed a power beyond recognition. With a painful scrape, Len landed and slid across the ground, narrowly avoiding the beast's crushing descent as dust exploded around him wounded. And panting, he realized this monstrosity's strength exceeded even Yelk's past capabilities. It had become something entirely new. Even so, Len tightened his grip on his sword and sprinted forward, prepared to face the dragon-shaped terror once more. The towering dragon roared into the stormy sky, its muscular form pulsing with chaotic magical energy. Licia flew low across the battlefield, eyes locked on Len as the dragon lunged forward with devastating speed. The beast's charge slammed Len into the ground, launching his broken body toward Licia, blood streaking through the air. Seeing Len collapse in pain and barely conscious, Licia's expression shifted from fear to desperate concern as she called his name. As the monstrous dragon approached, Licia knelt beside Len's unmoving form, shielding him with her body while staring into the enemy's eyes. Yelk loomed from within the cursed tree, his face twisted with madness as he declared the moment of death. His gaze locked on Len and Licia, savoring what he believed would be his final act of destruction. Without hesitation, Licia released a surge of magic surrounding Len's broken body and radiant light that repelled the darkness. As healing energy enveloped him, Len's hand twitched and slowly tightened around Licia's fingers in a faint response. Then she smiled gently through tears, grateful he had protected her despite everything, holding his hand close to her heart. Len knelt beside Licia, whose bloodied figure barely clung to life, whispering her name with trembling breath. Licia gazed up at him, offering a faint smile as if to ease his sorrow despite her fading strength. Though her voice could barely rise, then her hand rested near his, silently entrusting him with what she could no longer carry. A massive shadow fell over them as the enemy's clawed foot crashed to the ground, signaling the fight was far from over. Len stood firm beside her, eyes unwavering, vowing in his heart to protect her without retreat, no matter the cost. As the monstrous claw descended with crushing force, Len raised his sword and stared death in the eye. He spun with swift momentum, unleashing a powerful arc of energy that tore through the space before him, greeting. His teeth, Len tightened his grip as his blade clashed against overwhelming strength, the impact shaking the ground. Though the beast pressed harder, he let out a fierce cry, his aura flaring as his sword surged with defiance. With an earth-splitting roar, the enemy lunged again, but Len refused to falter while Licia still lay behind him. The creature lunged with its claws outstretched, but Len braced himself with his sword ready to strike in. A flash of violent impact, the beast was thrown back and Len's sword embedded itself into the ground. Exhausted, he collapsed beside Licia, clutching her hand as the monstrous threat began to rise again. Suddenly, her bracelet glowed, releasing a wave of energy that surged into Len's arm and lit up his eyes. On an unknown interface, mysterious symbols flickered to life beside a level indicator, signaling the start of something new. As the energy from Licia's bracelet pulsed through his arm, Len questioned the sudden emergence of power. The monstrous beast lunged toward them once more, claws tearing through the air with violent force. Raising his hand high, then Len made a desperate vow, willing to accept anything if it meant protecting her from that oath. A blinding light erupted upward as a massive sword of energy took shape in his grasp. Far off, a mysterious figure, and the beast reacted to the overwhelming surge, eyes wide with shock and recognition. A whirlwind of energy spiraled outward as Len's sword released a devastating wave toward the monstrous foe. The beast's body reeled as the glowing slash struck directly through its chest, halting its forward charge. A blinding burst of light exploded across the battlefield, scattering fragments of impact and tearing through the air. With wings torn apart, the creature's silhouette faded in the wave, unable to withstand the force unleashed. Its once mighty form disintegrated mid-roar, vanishing into particles as the battle reached its long-awaited conclusion. From atop a twisted tree, the elf watched in disbelief as the explosion's light rapidly consumed the landscape. The blast expanded outward with overwhelming intensity, engulfing everything in its radius with spiraling magical energy. A towering pillar of light erupted into the sky, shaking the air and illuminating the distant mountains across the forest, and beyond, the beam pierced the clouds while Len's glowing hand anchored its release. As the energy calmed, Len collapsed near Licia, her breathing faint as he stared at the fading light. In Licia remained unconscious, and Len stood protectively. The energy swirled around them. Morning light broke over the fortified capital, still haunted by recent unrest. The streets remained quiet, uneasy peace hanging in the air. Inside a modest room, a young woman gently woke a boy with urgent news. A nobleman, Lord Clausel, was finally being transferred to the imperial capital. Elsewhere, quiet conversations filled the alleyways. Rumors spread that Clausel's trial was incomplete, raising questions. Soldiers and citizens gathered as a guarded procession moved through the main street, watching from above. One figure quietly observed, tension reflected in their eyes. Leading the escort, a high-ranking official surveyed the crowd with stern authority. Behind him, soldiers held banners aloft. Amid the procession, questions were raised about the unusual leniency shown toward Len Ashton by a noble officer. officer rather than answered directly. The older noble responded cryptically, acknowledging how everyone dismisses Len as a mere country knight's son. In hushed reflection, the man recalled a past discovery, an unexpected piece of information found by chance in old archives. He believed that gaining control over the Ashton family, especially Len, would elevate the status of the Gwyn household within the hero faction. Turning away, he left the younger knight confused. "Someday you'll understand," he said, hiding the true story. A mysterious light had pierced the night sky, its origin unknown. Some feared it was the saint's power. If so, something grave might have happened. In Yelko, orders were dispatched swiftly. Knights rode out under the cover of darkness to investigate the disturbance. Tension weighed heavily on the noble in charge. His forces were already stretched thin against the royalist faction. He reminded his subordinates that failure was not an option. At dawn, the gates opened. Soldiers marched with urgency, their leaders' gaze fixed on the road ahead. From beyond the hills, a lone rider approached. The radiance surrounding her caused a stir among onlookers. The knight's expression froze as he recognized the figure emerging from the light. His voice trembled in disbelief. Lisha stood tall, radiant against the backdrop of dawn. Her eyes revealed neither fear nor hesitation. Horses galloped across the field. A voice shouted her name, desperate to reach her before anyone else could. Len broke formation and rushed to her side. Guards tried to intervene, but Lisha reassured them. She insisted they speak later, prioritizing calm over chaos. While resting against her shoulder, Len murmured his resolve. He couldn't let the sacrifices made for them be in vain. Lisha remained silent, but her eyes softened. The nobleman named Gibbons halted his horse as Lisha boldly stepped forward, addressing him directly. Without hesitation, she declared her stance. Although polite, her tone carried firm defiance, rejecting his assumed authority. Taken aback by her response, Gibbons allowed a twisted smile. He reminded her who truly held influence, her father, not her. Despite her steady voice, Lisha's eyes revealed a flicker of doubt. Observers sensed her internal conflict beneath the surface. Gibbons studied her closely. From what he had heard, she was still immature, struggling to stay composed through exhaustion. Lisha lowered her head briefly, then urged Len forward with quiet conviction. She challenged the noble to observe what she held. Unfazed, she revealed a magical item once carried by an elf reportedly employed by his faction. She implied it could link him to the recent attack. The noble scoffed at the accusation, his expression darkened, dismissing her claim as absurd, coming from someone titled a saint. As her voice rose, Lisha declared that both she and Len had witnessed the elf attack firsthand, yet the noble questioned how such claims implicated him directly. Removing his glasses with an air of disdain, he ridiculed the artifact as flimsy evidence. Lisha pressed further, asserting they had been attacked in the forest by knights bearing the noble's insignia. Her demand for accountability grew sharper. Without hesitation, she pointed at one of the armored men. She clearly remembered his face and the blade raised against her and Len. Tension escalated as the accused knight denied the claim. He insisted he had remained outside the forest under direct orders. The noble adjusted his glasses, concluding that Lisha had likely been misled by someone else. He subtly dismissed her statement as confusion, though Lisha suggested continuing the discussion in her town. The noble refused coldly. His smile revealed he had no intention of cooperating further. The knight stepped forward to defend Lisha's claim, reminding the noble that her words carried weight. Gibbons rejected the warning and insisted that if a trial was needed, it would be held in the capital. Watching silently, Len clenched his fist. He demanded the knight show his hand, the mark revealing the truth. With unwavering eyes, Len declared the knight's guilt. His voice left no room for doubt, and the noble flinched. Len stands before a mounted army, sweat trickling down his pressure mounts. He braces himself, unwilling to let the bonds he has formed be wasted. A knight in armor steps forward, ordering Len to show the back of his hand. Tension rises around them as soldiers remain alert, waiting for a response that could change everything. Lisha interrupts firmly. She claims the man being questioned should bear a wound, one inflicted by both her and Len. An older knight moves to act, commanding the accused to reveal his hand. Panic flashes in the younger knight's eyes as he hesitates, caught between duty and fear. Defiance breaks out. The younger knight yells in protest, insisting on his innocence. The older officer leans forward, voice sharp and cold. He orders the younger knight to reveal his hand at once, warning that if he hesitates further. Caught off guard, the young knight stiffens. His eyes widen, and alarm as pressure builds beyond escape. Crowds begin to gather, whispers filling the air. Reluctantly, the knight starts removing his gauntlet, sweat lining his brow. Metal falls to the ground with a clatter. The armored glove hits the dirt, revealing a partially healed mark on the back of his hand. A jagged burn and a shallow cut are exposed. They match the signs of holy magic, evidence not easily dismissed. The officer delivers his final statement, cold and absolute, with no room left for doubt. He declares the matter closed and prepares to withdraw. The knights begin their departure, banners raised as they ride out of the castle gate. Riding at the rear, the sharply dressed man maintains a stern composure. His expression doesn't waver as he follows the departure departing force out of the castle grounds. Lisha watches him go, her eyes filled with hesitation without. Turning back, the officer rides ahead. Dust rises with the steady steps of horses. His gaze remains fixed forward, leaving silence in his wake. The investigation concludes as the officer declares the matter settled. Without further explanation, he announces his departure. Knights and officials begin to move out in formation. Riding at the front, the blonde knight bows his head, while others follow, leaving Len and Lisha watching silently from the side. The stern officer, now separated from the others, rides with quiet authority. He remains expressionless, offering no glance back at the people or place he leaves behind. Lisha watches him go with an unreadable expression. Hooves strike the ground as the officer rides into the distance. Dust swirls behind him, while his cold, unwavering gaze stays locked forward, never acknowledging those left behind. A close-up of Lisha's eye reveals her growing unease. Questions swirl silently in her mind, uncertainty tightening in her expression. Suddenly, a slow and deliberate clap echoes. The unexpected sound draws everyone's attention. Eyes widen as all heads turn toward the source. With his back to them, the mysterious man praises what just occurred. He steps forward, praising their courage and the dignity they displayed. His tone is theatrical, calling their encounter a beautiful story. Lisha, caught off guard, stares at him in confusion, her lips part to speak, questioning who he truly is. Around her, murmurs rise as others wonder the same. The mysterious gentleman introduces himself as Edgar with a calm expression. He politely asks to take charge of the current situation on behalf of the saint. He lifts his hand and clarifies that his intention is not to disrupt but merely assist in closing the curtain on the events that unfolded without diminishing the efforts of those involved. Turning to the nobles, Edgar presents himself as a messenger sent by his master to the region. Smiling, Edgar responds without hostility. He slowly draws a decorated emblem bearing blade from a suit. Faces tense as the ornate crest becomes visible. Recognition flashes across everyone's eyes, its meaning unmistakable. Lisha listens quietly as Edgar hints that even without stating his master's name, everyone seems to have understood his position. The officer's composure breaks. He accuses Edgar of mocking nobility and demands clarity. Edgar calmly warns that misinterpreting a noble's crest could lead to consequences. Turning to the legal envoy of the empire, Edgar clarifies his authority. He was granted full freedom by his master to act and even speak in his stead when needed. The envoy, realizing the situation's weight, agrees that there are too many inconsistencies. As a final point, Edgar emphasizes the gratitude his master holds for Len Ashton. That connection shifts the tone. Edgar's calm gaze sharpens. He warns that if similar interference occurs again, his side will remain involved until the very end. Far away, a shadowed figure sits in a throne, face obscured. This man is the true master Edgar represents, silently offering his support from behind the scenes. Shock spreads across the faces of both the officer and the imperial envoy. Confusion turns to suspicion. The officer clenches his teeth, questioning why such a powerful figure would even bother to act in this matter. Suddenly, cloaked skeletal figures appear behind the officer, weapons drawn. A blade hovers near his throat. Edgar explains that the miracle caused by Len and Lisha earned his master's attention. Moreover, Len's past act of saving someone dear further justified the intervention. Lisha suddenly recalls the moment being referenced. Her eyes widen as understanding settles in behind her. Len remains silent, still exhausted from the ordeal. With a slight smile, Edgar casually refers to the accusation that he had drawn his blade. A majestic castle overlooked the valley as Len's eyes slowly fluttered open. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar and the air carried a quiet chill. Silken drapes and elegant decor frame the grand bedroom. Len sat upright, confusion growing as he noticed another presence beside him. Suddenly, the girl stirred, recognizing him. Instantly, Lishia's eyes widened. Without hesitation, she rushed into his arms, catching him off guard with her unexpected embrace. Tears welled in Lishia's eyes as she clung to Len tightly, overwhelmed by relief. Len held her gently. Sitting up in bed, Len listened intently. From Lishia, he learned the truth. He had been unconscious for an entire month since arriving in Clausel. Len remained seated in bed as a well-dressed man approached, gesturing calmly. Later that day, the man explained how a retrial had been held. Thanks to Len and Lishia's actions, the charges against him were dismissed. The real culprit, identified as a noble named Shurgu, confessed using a hidden poison. He took his own life rather than face judgment. Len was stunned by the revelation. The man speculated Shurgu might have chosen death either due to pressure from powerful allies or because he feared what capture would expose. Before any further investigation could be conducted, Shurgu's mansion mysteriously caught fire. All remaining evidence was lost in the flames. Grateful beyond words, the nobleman expressed deep thanks to Len. He revealed that the powerful house backing him only intervened because of Len's earlier actions. From the materials gathered from a rare creature called the sea wolfen, essential ingredients for valuable medicine could be extracted. Because Len had defeated a sea wolfen without damaging its insides, he unknowingly provided perfect materials. It was revealed that the one one saved by that medicine was a nobleman's daughter long ill and bedridden. Thanks to Len, her life had been preserved. To express gratitude, the noble's household extended a formal invitation. Len accepted the emblem-marked envelope. Len stared at the crest on the invitation, eyes wide in disbelief. It belonged to the Ignat family, an aristocratic house known in his past life as the final boss of the legend of the Seven Heroes. Despite their noble standing, the Ignat family had historically aligned with dark forces. However, Len remembered something odd. The family's rebellion began after the death of the Duke's daughter in the game she had never survived. A week later, the castle's halls stood quiet. Word of Len's recovery had spread, and visitors began arriving from distant places. His parents, having fled an earlier village attack, came to see him. They brought salvage belongings and relief. Len recalled a strange sensation from the battlefield. His bracelet had reacted just as he touched Ligia, though no marks remained on the bracelet. Now the moment still puzzled him. The magical sword that appeared back then also vanished afterward, raising even more questions about that encounter. Later, Len and Licia walked along the castle balcony. She expressed relief that Len's parents had safely returned, clearly sharing in his peace of mind. While speaking with her, Len found himself suddenly observing her closely. Startled, Licia blushed and demanded to know how he'd figured it out. Len's casual guess had somehow hit the truth. Licia was startled by Len's sudden insight, questioning if he had heard something from her father. Len quickly dismissed it, explaining it had been a lighthearted guess based on instinct. After a moment of hesitation, Licia admitted the truth. She trusted Len enough to share something she wouldn't tell anyone else. Only a select few, she revealed, could harbor a magic stone within their body. Meanwhile, Len reflected on the mysterious sword that had appeared earlier. He wondered if its emergence might be tied to one of the legendary weapons from the legend of the Seven Heroes. Despite the possibility, he questioned whether that event had meaning beyond just gaining power. Len stood alone on the balcony, deep in thought. He considered whether everything that had happened was truly unavoidable or simply a result of choices made originally. He had planned to avoid getting involved with Licia or anyone tied to the tragic future he remembered defeating the Sea Wolf, and had triggered a shift. The story's flow, once familiar from the game, now diverged. People like Yelku, who were supposed to die or become future bosses, were now spared. Even the fate of the Ignat family's daughter had changed. Each decision he made, however small, was reshaping this world. The weight of his actions had become impossible to ignore. Licia gently reached out, placing her hand on Len's cheek. Surprised, he paused mid-thought as she quietly asked what was troubling him. Without hesitation, she reassured him. To her, Len wasn't just anyone, he was her hero. Those words reached him more deeply than he expected. Memories of their first meeting resurfaced. Back then, he had been defensive and distant, yet now she looked at him with warmth. As he closed his eyes and leaned into her touch, peace finally settled within him. Far away in the heart of the Empire, clouds drifted above sprawling cities inside a grand chamber of the Imperial Officer Academy. Across the continent, newspapers reported mysterious light sightings. Theories varied. Some called it divine, others claimed it was the wrath of a forgotten god within. The Academy director's office, Chrono Highland, let out a weary sigh. Elsewhere, a young woman in a pointed hat calmly read the same reports. A glimmer crossed her eyes as she thought about the one who might erase her past. A sudden death in the capital sparked chaos. Rumors spread. Some claimed foreign invasion, others spoke of divine punishment. Amid the turmoil, Ignat, head of the royalist faction, remained seated in silence. The incident's cause, far from logical, pointed to him. His daughter lay sick in bed. He had searched endlessly for medicine but failed. The royal family possessed the cure, yet the emperor denied him access. Though the medicine had been in imperial hands, the emperor claimed he acted justly. Still, the girl's condition worsened. In the end, she died quietly in her chambers. Consumed by grief, Ignat resented the emperor. Vengeance brewed in silence. Edgar sat quietly in the garden of the royal estate, a warm cup of tea in hand. The butler served him respectfully, speaking of things that could not be bought with gold. A slight smile formed on Edgar's face as he nodded in agreement. He felt a sense of calm. The burden of grief slightly lifted. The butler hesitated, but Edgar cut him off gently. He knew the emperor's decision had not been personal. It was made for the sake of the empire. Still, understanding didn't mean acceptance. Deep down, Edgar remained unsettled. His daughter's voice called to him, breaking the silence. There she stood, alive, smiling, no longer in pain. The butler rushed to greet the returning girl, Fiona, who offered her help with cheerful energy. Fiona shared her gratitude and spoke about visiting Lord Lanark to thank him. Edgar responded warmly, but reminded her that he was expected by the Clausel estate and couldn't delay. She proposed writing a letter instead. Edgar agreed, acknowledging the importance of respecting Clausel's wishes. With a smile, he asked for a little more patience. Looking up at the sky, Fiona nodded softly. The birds soared freely, silently. Both made the same vow: one day, no matter what, they would meet again. Gratitude unspoken would be shared. Under the crescent moon, the city of Clausel glowed silently. In a room lit by candlelight, a boy sat deep in thought, unable to sleep. He studied a glowing orb hovering above his hand, a rare item called the Azure Orb of Seracia. The orb's description hinted at immense power. With enough magic and a dragon's horn, it could be awakened and swear absolute loyalty to its master upon rebirth. He recalled the game's lore. A sealed creature of ice and darkness was rumored to slumber inside, but no one ever found a way to activate it. When he opened the door, a girl appeared asking politely if she could come in despite the late hour. Rishia, the white saint, entered the room with a gentle smile. Noticing the boy examining the glowing gem again, he explained how the orb had been recovered from a ruin by his parents and remained intact even through a fire. Rishia listened quietly, concerned. If the orb truly held a dangerous being, keeping it close might be safer than letting it fall into the wrong hands. After a pause, she asked how long he intended to stay in Clausel, her eyes searching for an answer. Smiling playfully, she decided for him staying for 1,000 more times would be just fine. Len explained that even with daily effort, his project would take nearly 3 years. Rishia, frustrated by the slow plan, insisted he stay in her room instead. She softened, admitting she wouldn't demand 1,000 more times, just asked that he take things slower and not rush away. Their eyes met in silence. A quiet understanding passed between them, unspoken but clear. He smiled gently and agreed to stay a little longer. With calm sincerity, he said he would continue to rely on her for a while. Time passed with them training together daily. Between their sparring sessions, they sometimes walked through the city, went shopping, and shared quiet moments side by side. On an afternoon while shopping, Rishia insisted on buying Len a formal outfit using her own allowance, much to a surprise and embarrassment later. That day, a group of mounted knights arrived in Clausel. When curious asked whether they were the Order of the Holy Knights, an older knight confirmed their identity. He invited Len to observe a demonstration, noting that the visiting knight was highly skilled and led the order. As they walked through the grand hall, the knight explained that most swordsmen studied a major school of swordsmanship. Len recalled the game lore. These techniques allowed non-skilled individuals to fight using mana-based sword arts, a substitute for innate abilities. Learned that his guide had once favored the imperial style of swordsmanship since holy techniques didn't suit him. As he listened, Len reflected on how sword users were ranked by skill. Rishia was known as one of the best, nearly at the highest level, just beneath sword saints. Curious, Len asked if there were other sword styles worth exploring. The knight mentioned steel sword style. The steel sword's founder was said to be King Li, or now the Lion King. This technique was extremely hard to learn and nearly impossible to acquire. Memories of frustration resurfaced. Despite its power, the style came with harsh drawbacks, permanent stat reductions, and fatal blows that couldn't be avoided. Rishia enthusiastically invited Len to train together. Standing beside the knight, he was unsure how to respond to her sudden energy. Approached a tall, confident man who had heard of Len's skill from Rishia. He offered Len the chance to join them for training, though Len modestly declined at first. The man insisted on observing his abilities, proposing a light demonstration. Drawing his blade, the instructor calmly stepped forward, inviting Len to begin with a simple exchange of strike. Steel clashed as their swords met in a sharp test of strength and reflexes. Despite the casual invitation, this was no ordinary practice. It marked the beginning of a serious evaluation of Len's potential. Clash intensified. Len moved swiftly, testing the instructor's defense with calculated swings and quick footwork, surprising onlookers with his speed. Face to face, Len struck with greater precision. His stance, though unpolished, carried determination and raw instinct, forcing the instructor to respond seriously. The man encouraged Len not to imitate others. Instead, he urged him to fight as himself, to embrace what felt natural rather than mimic techniques from memory. Realizing he had subconsciously relied on old habits from his past life, Len shifted with a focused breath. He adjusted his grip and resolved to move forward his own way. Energy exploded from his blade as he unleashed a flurry of strikes. The instructor acknowledged Len's form, though he anticipated a strong showing. Len's attack exceeded expectations, forcing the knight to counter seriously. Rishia looked on in surprise while Len readied himself again, unshaken by the previous exchange and more focused than before. Despite attempting to shatter Len's defense, the knight realized his blow had been blocked, a feat few could manage. After the match, the knight asked for Len's name. Upon hearing it, he respectfully stated that Len likely wasn't suited for the holy sword style. Both Len and Rishia were taken aback. She questioned the assessment, unable to understand why someone so clearly strong wasn't a match for the revered sword technique. The instructor clarified that Len's strength was undeniable, but his true limitation was compatibility. Even if Len trained hard enough to learn them, there was no guarantee he'd ever truly master the underlying arts that made them effective. Len proposed a compromise. Instead of advanced techniques, perhaps he could start with basic swordsmanship under proper guidance later. Another knight questioned why someone as skilled as Len was denied access to the holy sword path. The answer wasn't about favoritism. The experienced instructor had sensed it during their duel. Len possessed a rare talent, not for the sacred path, but for an entirely different, extraordinary sword style. Later that evening, Len asked Rishia if she had been upset during the lesson. She looked puzzled at first, but he pointed out out that she seemed withdrawn midway. Her flustered reaction only confirmed it, though she denied it. Len teasingly concluded that her reaction betrayed her true feelings. Rishia voiced her frustration to her. The instructor's comments sounded like he was saying Len lacked talent. Ren, however, calmly said it was better to know early and avoid wasted time. He urged her to focus on her own progress instead of worrying about him. Rishia admitted that even the instructor had noted similarities between their sword styles. She then revealed a quiet truth in her efforts to surpass him. She had studied his every movement, each stance and sword swing she practiced had been based on Len's own form. Rishia admitted that her swordsmanship bore the same flaws as Ren's, though the instructor claimed it was still within the fixable range. Doubt lingered in her heart. She curled up on the bed, quietly confessing that correcting those flaws felt like being told her entire goal, chasing Len, had been wrong from the start. Yet, with a more composed expression, she told Len there was no need to cling to one style. There were many sword paths, and perhaps another suited her better. Len pondered this, remembering that Rishia had trained in holy sword techniques. He answered with sincerity their circumstances differed. He was a knight from a rural land, while she was a saint. Lisha stood firm, expressing her resolve to choose her own path with no obligations tying her down. She recalled her father's encouragement to pursue what she believed in. She understood the difficulty of unlearning ingrained habits and believed starting fresh would lead to better growth. Her gaze held quiet determination. The boy beside her realized something critical. Lisha wasn't a character from the original game. She was different, unpredictable. Inspired, he decided to search for a path that suited him as well, matching the clarity Lisha displayed. Under the night sky, a shared destiny quietly began to form between them. Under a moonlit sky, a young girl walks slowly outside a grand mansion, her steps hesitant but determined. Suddenly her legs give out and she collapses, but a blonde maid catches her just in time, preventing a hard fall. Kneeling beside her, the maid suggests ending the training, but the insists on continuing, frustrated by her own weakness. Later that night, she lies awake in bed, haunted by the reality that she still can't walk unaided. With tears in her eyes, she pleads for more time, vowing to try harder before giving up. Supported by her maid, the girl pushes through her pain, longing for the day she can stand tall on her own and express her gratitude without help. She recalls the boy who once freed her from despair. His distant figure remains etched in her memory, driving her forward. From a window high above, someone silently watches her progress as evening falls beyond the estate gates. Exhausted but proud, she sits down. Her father appears unexpectedly, praising her efforts with a warm smile. He hands her a letter from the Imperial Academy, proof that her hard work has finally borne fruit. The girl reads the acceptance letter aloud, her eyes wide with joy. She proudly announces her success to her father, disbelief still lingering. Surprised by the results, she asked why they seemed so confident. Her father, smiling knowingly, turns the question to the maid. Even during her weakest days, she had studied relentlessly. In bed, her efforts never went unnoticed. Despite passing, she confesses how anxious she truly was. Her trembling voice reveals just how much it meant. Her father gently encourages her to keep going, slowly but steadily, reminding her that there is no need to rush gratitude. The girl, flustered but smiling, responds sharply, assuring she understands, though her cheeks are tinted with emotion. Under the moonlight, a grand academy looms on the horizon. A question is raised: what does Len truly want for his future? Offered a comfortable life at home or to remain a knight, Len is given freedom to choose his path. He hesitates, struggling to voice the thoughts he's held inside, uncertain of what to say at first. Though he longs to be with his family again, he fears becoming a burden and wonders if returning is truly right. A serious discussion unfolds among adults regarding Len's safety. Past mistreatment by a noble and concerns of future threats prompt new plans. Len learns that his father had already spoken with others about his future. The decision to support Len's wishes was made with care. His father believes there is no need to rush major life choices until the village recovers. Len should live peacefully in Clausel. Grateful, Len expresses a desire to someday resolve problems on his own, even if it is idealistic for someone of his position. Misunderstandings arise about noble expectations, but his father assures him the real message lies elsewhere. A mighty sword pierces the earth, its name Sword King. The words send a powerful tremor through Len's thoughts. Stunned, Len confirms its meaning. He learns that only 5 of these legendary swordsmen exist in the world. These Sword Kings are bound by no nation, moving freely by their own, while some dwell in the imperial capital by choice alone. Even in legends, defeating them required overwhelming strength, teamwork, and extraordinary luck. Len is encouraged to learn under Vice alongside Lisha. His guardian promises full support, urging him to sharpen himself without fear. Eager to contribute, offers to help with any available work, no matter how small. He asked whether the task involves hunting magical beasts, his eyes sharp with curiosity. The reply confirms it, with beast increasing dangerously. Len is asked to help investigate and monitor nearby threats. His duties include tracking monster activity, reporting regularly, quickly and eliminating them when necessary. Additionally, he is permitted to take on guild requests during his outings. As he steps into the city streets, the possibilities of adventure and responsibility begin to unfold before him. Len arrives at the guild entrance, confirming to himself that this is the right place. As he steps inside the room, falls into momentary silence. Adventurers glance over, surprised by his presence. A gruff man murmurs in curiosity, while a woman beside him advises him not to stare. Len remains calm, unfazed. At the counter, Len requests to register. The receptionist hesitates, but agrees, noting his confident manner despite his youth. She asks again if it's truly his first time. Though surprised by his composure, she processes the request without issue. Len receives his guild card. Already aware of the system, he explains he studied the rules through reading, including card replacement fees. At the quest board, he scans the postings. These contain information about magical beasts in the surrounding area. He notes that even D-ranked creatures are scarce in Clausel due to the region's low threat level. As he reflects, 3 figures appear behind him. One asks if he's curious about the hero. They reveal they were referring to him. His composed demeanor and polite negotiation had clearly left a strong impression. One of the men warns Len to avoid a particular target, implying it's more dangerous than it appears. The other explains that the D-ranked gargoyle isn't usually a threat unless provoked, yet its retaliation is still powerful. Len learns about rare gargoyles that consume metal and minerals. These unique types are called steel-eating gargoyles. He considers the benefits such materials are valuable, and defeating one could yield resources for a stronger magic sword. A skill window appears. Len's stats show he has the potential, though his skills still have room to grow. Len walks through the forest, reflecting on his recent growth. Since his battle with Yelkyu, his magic sword summoning has leveled up. He can now summon 2 swords at once. Suddenly, a rustle in the grass alerts him. A rabbit-like creature emerges, eyes wild and aggressive. It's amidst him an F-rank monster. Despite its size, it's fast and hostile. Len calmly summons his iron magic sword and swiftly counters the attack without hesitation. He follows up with his second summon, the wood magic sword, striking with practice ease and repelling the beast. Len effortlessly ensnared a wild creature using vines summoned by his magic. With practice precision, he hoisted it over his shoulder and scanned the brush for movement. The forest erupted with startled rustling as nearby creatures sensed danger and fled. Their cries echoed across the vast field, warning others of the hunter's presence. Later, seated on a rock, Len reviewed his skill levels. His wood magic sword had reached its limit. Between bites of his sandwich, he wondered if leveling required specific conditions. Strategies swirled in his mind as the sun rose higher. More vines ride across the land, expanding their reaches, sign his power was still growing. At the marketplace, onlookers were stunned as Len arrived, dragging massive bundles of vines. A clerk nervously asked if she could purchase everything he had. 2 E-rank earthworms, tightly bound, and enchanted vines lay before her. Though their magic stones had been removed, she confirmed the trade. By evening, Len had earned 600,000 gold, an amount far beyond a commoner's yearly wage. With thoughts of investment, he wandered into the merchant district. Inside a familiar tailor's shop, he examined suits. The staff recognized him from a past visit, impressed by his unexpected return. A month later, a girl stood shocked by his sudden departure, demanding to know where he was going. Len attempted to express gratitude with a farewell gift, but the girl insisted he stay, urging him to remain in the guest room. Politely refusing, he explained his place was as a servant of the Ashton family and requested directions to the old mansion, his new assignment. After consulting with Lord Lezard, he had accepted the role of caretaker for the old estate, feeling it more appropriate than residing as a guest. She misunderstood his intentions and felt misled, believing he had returned to the village. Later, a maid delivered a box. The girl noticed it bore the emblem of the same clothing shop Len had visited. With a gentle expression, Len opened the box he had carefully prepared, drawing the girl's quiet attention. Inside was a neatly folded dress from the boutique she had recognized earlier. He invited her to accept it if she was willing. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she remained speechless as he delicately lifted the garment. Kneeling before her, Len presented the gift, confirming it was indeed for her. He explained that he had bought at the day he earned money for the first time, making the gesture all the more meaningful to them both. The girl gently touched the fabric, admiring its texture. She whispered that it was adorable, her expression softening. Ren, smiling slightly, offered to find another if she didn't like it. His tone was light yet considerate. Tightly clutching the dress, she shook her head and quietly declared she wouldn't return it. She loved it too much. Seeing her embrace the gift, Len wondered silently if she truly liked it, feeling a subtle warmth rise within him. She admitted it wasn't fair. Emotionally moved, Len apologized, assuring her he never intended to seek forgiveness through material means. Turned away, flustered by the sudden emotions, Len watched in silence, unsure how to respond to her mixed signals. Len lies in bed, trapped in a dream. Memories from the game Legend of the Seven Heroes, the second surface, vividly pulsating. pulling him into a past he knows all too well. In the dream he sees Chrono, a Highland, a renowned mage, standing beside Licia Clausel in a regal hall. Chrono, a falls slain. The vision shows her lifeless body pierced by a sword. Len's own hand the cause. She was an academy headmaster and one of the strongest in the game. How Len defeated her remains a mystery. Len wakes in shock. The dream was too real. Determined to avoid that future, he decides to stay far from the Empire and its academy. Morning arrived in the city and Len greeted the townspeople. While walking through the bustling market, the locals responded warmly to his cheerful presence. Adventurers Guild, where adventurers gathered drinking and exchanging quests in a lively atmosphere. He checked the mission board but found nothing of interest. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten enough. A quiet laugh caught his attention. A hooded girl nearby had noticed the sound and smiled in an amusement. With a gentle gesture, she invited Len to join her for breakfast, sparking an unexpected encounter. Len hesitated but approached the girl. She quickly reassured him, insisting she would cover the cost, urging him not to feel awkward. He politely declined the offer, explaining that he had money and simply needed a seat. Her identity remained unclear under the hood, yet she seemed oddly familiar. Their meal arrived and the two sat together in silence. Len noticed how calm and mature she appeared, used to the atmosphere. She broke the silence with light, teasing. Her voice sounded altered, raising suspicions about her true nature. Curious, Len asked why she spoke to him. She admitted she had been thinking about how to recruit him. The hooded girl joked about recruiting him, but Len nervously declined, saying he'd be arrested if he got involved in something like that. She extended a serious invitation, asking him to visit the capital together, saying she enjoyed talking to him. Len refused without hesitation. She sighed, a little hurt, realizing he knew she was from the capital. After paying for their meal, she stood up, explaining she had to leave for another task, but wished they could have talked more before parting. She smiled and asked Len to someday tell her about his mysterious power. As the girl exited the guild, Len froze, startled by her parting words that hinted she knew about his hidden power. He rushed out, heart racing. How could she possibly know about his sword summoning magic, something he hadn't told anyone? Scanning the busy street, Len couldn't find her. Before he could investigate further, someone called out, asking if he was headed to the eastern forest again. Two adventurers invited Len to join their hunt deeper in the woods, saying the guild needed help. Len politely declined, explaining he had another task assigned by someone important. The adventurers respected Len's refusal and expressed interest in hunting with him another time. He responded politely, appreciating their offer. As he walked away, his thoughts returned to the mysterious hooded girl. Her identity and how she knew about his power remained a puzzle. In the forest, a monstrous plant creature lunged at him. Len reacted swiftly, ready for battle. He fought with precision and subdued the creature alone, showcasing his skill and composure. Later, he documented the findings. His task continued smoothly, and he considered how